I got the invite.
Okay. We're live.
Oh, maybe it only goes. Oh, we're live. We're live. Maybe that's why the invite didn't go out. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Strat Fan Forum Football Show. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Tom Cook. We're going to be talking 1985 Summer Sprint Draft. We put together a Summer Sprint fast as you can league. We drafted in 10 days, actually 9 days, and we had a lot of fun. So Tom, welcome to the show. There's no sound effects, so round of applause.
Boy, what a come down from the old round of applause to that. So I give you props for effort, but I don't think that's going to get the job done too well. But yeah, basically we're talking about Dennis runs these Battle Royale Strat football leagues. This is Strat-o-matic football for everyone who's listening who wonders what the hell we're talking about. And Dennis likes to talk to people near the computer right into the microphone, so we hear that on the show, which is good.
I was just sharing a piece of Kringle with my son, who newly graduated from high school, heading to college to become a nurse. But today's broadcast is brought to you by the Danish Kringle. This is the special occasion treat that's really good to eat. It usually only comes out on Christmas and New Year's. And they had some at Trader Joe's, so pick some up for a little graduation celebration. They're delicious.
So is it required that you be a high school graduate before you're allowed to eat Kringle? Is there an age limitation or
no, I haven't eaten Kringle.
Educational requirement?
I've been eating Kringle since I was knee high to a grasshopper. So yeah, definitely good for all ages.
Son?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Exactly.
And now back. Exactly. So Dennis runs the Battle Royale Strat Leagues. It's a very good. It's a great concept where basically you take one Strat season, and however number of coaches you have, 14 to 17, 10 tends to be the number we have. You draft one unit off of an NFL team. So, for example, you could draft the Dallas Cowboys offensive line or the Seattle Seahawks secondary, and you get that unit. And it's a draft. So, obviously, once you pick that unit's gone. No one else can take it. And you end up with a kind of a quick way of having a draft league for those of you who don't like doing stock teams as much. And Dennis and I are big draft league guys, and Dennis also plays with stock teams. I used to play with stock teams, of course. So anyway, I came up with the idea a few years ago about something, Dennis, that could cover the hole in our Strat football schedule. Once the spring leagues end in June, and once we're waiting for the Strat game to come out in August, what's a Strat coach to do? Baseball.
That's right.
So Strat football coach, I should say. So we run these summer sprints. We try to play in about 2 months. I think that's been extended to about 2.5 months. But basically, we play June, July, and try to get a championship game out of the way by late July, early August. And we play a season that's usually 15 or 16 games in that time. I think it's been as few as 13. And also, it's a money league. There's an entry fee. It's not an extravagant entry fee. All the money goes into the prize pool. And this year we did 1985. We had 17 teams. Got a strong pool of coaches. Got a couple of new guys, and it's going to be interesting. So let's go right into it. Now, talking about the draft, Dennis runs I better share my screen now. Dennis, I'm going to put you in charge of making sure that we stay live because I lost internet once and we were screwed.
Make sure you're doing the present to everyone.
You like me presenting to everyone, okay? What are you making faces for?
I don't know. Why am I showing up on the screen? You're sharing your screen, but you're looking at me. So I feel like I'm on TV. So, okay. I'm on TV. Hi, Mom.
There we go. Is this better, Dennis?
Yeah, that's much better than seeing my mug on the. I like my mug down there in the corner. Actually, I should share my screen too. But
hey, Dennis.
Hey, what's up, Michael Reeves? Welcome to the show.
Can we go back to the Crinkle again?
Sure. What do you want to know about it? It's from Racine, Wisconsin, which is be happy Butch. That's Butch's hometown for his. He's got the Wisconsin Badgers in this league. So there you go.
I'm just kidding. I'm going to shut up now. I just had to have one little fun moment.
So I think
jump in whenever you want.
So I think, Dennis, we have a potential name for one of our teams, the next Battle Royale, which would be the Racine Fighting Pringles.
There you go.
So, I like it. You got to find something better with a K. So I'll think of something. Sound. So So anyway, getting to the draft. Now, this is going to be our draft recap show. We're going to talk about the draft, which is a fascinating thing for everyone who goes through it, because there's so many possibilities, so many twists and turns, so many things you don't expect. There's so many different approaches. And of course, this is your team. This is what you play with, and you're stuck with it. There's no trading. You can't trade up or down in the draft. You can't trade any players or units after the draft. It's who you draft is who you get. Dennis, I was thinking of that like a week ago. That these battle royale leagues, they're a lot like Forrest Gump, Dennis. You never know what you're gonna get.
That's it. And as my kindergartner learned many years ago, you get what you get, and you don't throw a fit. So,
okay. And I say that because you can go into it with a certain plan or a certain strategy, but unless you're drafting like first or second or something, you don't know who that first person or unit's going to be. And then even there, when it comes around, you might have things that you thought were definitely going to be there and they're not there. Someone may fall in your lap that you weren't expecting, and the whole thing can change, and you end up with a different team than you expected. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go round by round and just talk briefly about any surprises that we felt were there, maybe any disappointing picks that we felt were there. Guys that are pretty harsh, Dennis. I was teasing. I was joking with Mick earlier today. I was emailing. I realized when I sent Mick an email looking for feedback on one of his picks, I said to him, I said, Mick, this is the part where I yell at people for not doing things the way that I would have done them. Which is basically what all my draft criticism comes down to. If you go away from what I would have done, I yell at you. I criticize negatively. So championships. So I shouldn't do that. I should get away from that. I think I've gotten a little better with the rookie draft stuff with that. But anyway. And should we talk about the overall strategy? Now, well, let's say real quick, Dennis, that 1985, I think you and I are in agreement. Tell me if you're in agreement. We've discussed this a little bit privately. But, to me, especially playing these older seasons, but any season really in Battle Royale, you need to take a look at the rule set. Not the rule set. You need to take a look at the season, at the ratings disc, the ratings file. And after we had 17 teams. You have to go 17 deep in every position. You got to look and analyze what kind of set is this? What kind of group is going to be in this league? Is there is there a lot of good passing? Is there a lot of good running? What kind of defense is strong or weak? And I think that's very, very important. There's certain depth at certain positions and things like that. And to me, analyzing 1985, and I grew up playing these strat seasons, so I know them pretty well, although I didn't use this particular one very much. I used 83 and 84 more, and 86 more. But a couple of things jump out at you. Number one, no pass blocking. Miami was pretty much the only team, I think, that had more than 1-7 pass blocking. That might be accurate. They're certainly the only one that had more than 2, I believe. Right. And there's a ton of pass rush out there. So that means sacks galore, okay? And then you're in an era where the long passing is good and dangerous, okay? And there's a lot of interceptions. And then you're playing in a set where almost everyone's going to play a 3-4. There's only 6 4-3 defenses in Strat that year out of the entire 2018 NFL. Then you're in a rule set that fits well with the pre-West Coast era. It fits well with the 60s and 70s and into the 80s, which is no dump off, no white die 6 on the flat pass, okay? So to me, no white die 6 on the flat pass, a lot of 3-4s. You're really not going to run a good West Coast offense easily, I don't believe. And a lot of these quarterback cards are built to throw the bomb, but you can't just fire away because you got no pass blocking. They got great pass rush. You're going to get sacked mercilessly, and there's still a fair number of interceptions in this set. So to me, this is a set which is old school strat. You got to run to set up the pass. You agree with that?
Yeah. If you're coming out throwing the ball guessed right over and over again against these 3-4 defenses showing blitz, or you try to flat pass against a 3-4 defense where they're clogging the flats, you're in big trouble. You're not going to be able to move the ball. And there was a couple of quarterbacks that have wow, these flat pass cards are insane. But against these defenses, and if you can only do one thing, the other coach is going to shut you down. So you need to have a balanced offense. You need to have a quarterback that can throw at all three levels, and you need to have running backs, halfbacks or fullbacks, that can get people to guess run. Otherwise, it's going to be a lot of punting, a lot of sacks.
Yeah, I think the teams that can't, I think you have to have a running game. You have to have a running game. And even a lot of teams, you may have to run. You may have to run 60% of the time or close to that. You may need to treat this maybe more like an early 70s season than a mid 80s season. Because even some of the great long passing quarterbacks, Marino and Fouts, they also throw a lot of picks. So it's going to be really fascinating to see what happens. Obviously, look, if you got Marino and Fouts, you're going to throw some bombs. No doubt about it. A lot of bombs. But it's going to, and also when you pass, it's going to be more bombs than people are accustomed to seeing, I think. It's going to be very interesting. And we have no free safety blitz restriction. So, I mean, guys are going to be showing blitz like all the time. It's a Dan Morin's special, So starting off with first round, Dan took Marino to start off. I took the Chicago defensive line, number 2. And we're not going to go down each pick, but just looking real quick. And Dennis and I will talk a little more about our picks because we're live, The first round, Dennis, any pick that leaps out at you, they say, boy, I really like that pick, or I'm surprised that slipped, something positive.
Well, it's hard to say anybody, that I'm surprised that somebody slipped. It's the first round. So, but Rick lucking himself into the Chicago halfbacks again. He did so well with Walter Payton and in one of our other battle royales that he went back to the well, and he actually got a high pick again. You're going to need to get a high pick to get them. I know that you were considering taking them at 2, but he was very happy to get him. And when you have somebody like Payton, that means your offense is going to move.
Yeah, well, I'll be honest with you. I think I made a mistake. I had looked over everything before the draft, and I had felt like, boy, there's not a lot of great running back cards that can make the guy guess run, that can still be effective running right and still be very dangerous guess wrong. There's not a lot of groups like that. And then I mentioned the interceptions earlier. There's also a lot of fumbles. In this group.
Yes.
A lot. If you look at individual fumble percentages, there's a lot of white ink and red ink and stuff like that. And I wanted to try to get, if I could, Walter Payton or Stunt Mitchell, Marcus Allen, really one of the top 3, or maybe the Indianapolis group, which was a very strong group. I wanted to get one of those top 4 if I could. And I actually spoke with Rick a lot about this. I had a strategy where I felt like if you got Walter Payton, you'd also probably be able to get John Elway, who I thought had an underrated card in the file big time. And then you could pound with Elway and throw bombs with, pound with Payton and throw bombs with Elway. And I thought that would be a very effective offensive strategy. And I also think that, all the pass rush on these 3-4 defenses means that even if you get like an average 3-4 defense, I feel like you can probably, I'm trying to do something here. I feel like you can probably play pretty good defense if you're an average with good pass rush. So I was telling myself, well, so then the offense should be at a premium, so you should get a good offensive card, and you have to run. And I Payton by the number 1 running back easily. And I was thinking of doing that, but then with my spreadsheets, I also knew, hey, if you can stop the run, it's good. And your chances of getting a good pass defense with a 4-3 were much better. And Dennis, I owe the entire league an apology, except for Joe Golden and Dan Morin, because in putting together my combo spreadsheet, I tell people to double check it. It might not be accurate. I missed that New England Patriots have a backup 5
right.
defensive end. So this unit here, instead of being 15 points, is 16 points, and it's a 6.55. And then on Kansas City, on Kansas City, this nose tackle 5 in the file. If you go to like League Manager, it lists him as a 5, but he plays 2 positions, and it turns out he's a nose tackle 6. So he's a 15. So the Kenzie's a 15 and New England's a 16. Joe Golden and Dan Moore spotted those errors and took advantage of them. If I had realized that there were extra, good opportunities in a 3-4, I probably would have taken the Chicago 4-3. I'd probably taken Walter Payton number 2 overall. I think Rick has an excellent team. I think I would have had a really good team if I had gotten Payton 2 instead of that kind of a weird team, and I think I was paying a little too much attention to the spreadsheets and not too enough attention to the playability. And that's something that has bit me in the last couple of years. I've gotten more into these spreadsheets. Is when I play the games, I was still playing the games like normally, like I always coach them. But in assembling these teams and GMing, sometimes I'm going too much with the spreadsheet and not into the playability enough. I mean, if you have Walter Payton, guy has to call run quite a bit, otherwise you're going to have a field day. And in this set, a good running game, good long passing game with decent defense, I think goes a long way. What do you think, Dennis?
Yeah, I agree. And I sent out texts to everybody that I had reached out to during the draft to find out what their favorite pick was, what their heartbreaking pick was. And Rick's favorite pick of the draft, not surprisingly, was getting Peyton and Gentry at 1-4. Some other first round picks that people were happy to get. Ron said his favorite pick was the Dallas defensive line. And somebody else regretted, I believe it was, gosh, who was it? It may have been Michael Reeves or Mike Nemo, but somebody regretted not getting the Cleveland linebackers in round 1. So must have been somebody below them. Stage.
Well, okay. Interesting. Okay. Well, Mike Nemo went 2 picks after Cleveland linebackers. So, I did feel like the 4-3 defenses were in better shape towards getting a good pass defense. Much easier to get a good run defense. If you took Chicago, Dallas, or Washington, well, those to me were the only 3 that should have been drafted that were worth drafting in the league. They pretty much were all an automatic good against the run at least. And I said the running game was important in this set, so maybe the first time I felt it was more important to be good against the run than good against the pass. I think Mick did well to get Joe Montana at number 9. I do have him as the number 1 quarterback in the set. All due respect to Marino, who's awesome in the bomb. Just my formulas, Montana did come out better. The only thing with that is that it's going to be harder to West Coast against all these 3-4 teams. Montana does have a good short pass, long pass guard as well. But
yes. Speaking of Montana, that was Mick's favorite pick, getting Montana in the first round, and then following that up in the second round with the Miami offensive line, so we can protect Montana. Because, like you said, that's the only one with 2-7, pass.
And they've got, and I think they've got 3.
3, yeah, right, exactly. More than 2.
So I think they're the only one with 2, and not only the only one with 2, they have 3. That's what I mean. That's what I mean to say. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Absolutely.
And doing a quick look here, it does look like they're the only one that has at least 2 7s. They've got them on the left side, left tackle, left guard, and then the center. The center good against the 4-3s and it shuts down all these nose tackles. Otherwise, might do well. There's actually a lot of center 7s. So not only I think when you pick this season, and we were talking about the free safety blitz before you brought it up to the league, I counted, and there was only something like 12 or 13 7 pass blockers in the entire set. 3 of them were on the Dolphins, and then 4 or 5 of them are centers.
Right.
So so if you were not on Miami, and you were not a center, there was only maybe 4 7s in the entire deck or something like that, which is crazy. And then everyone's running around in defense with defensive linemen. A lot of them are 7s, 8s, and 9s at a minimum, it seems like. And just about every team looks like they've got 1 or 2 linebackers who are 11 or 12, and some high asterisk running around. So this pass rush is going to go wild. But yeah, I think I messed up. So I messed up with the file, and then I think I should have taken Peyton. I mean, yeah, I would say I messed up. I think Peyton was the way to go. To me, Peyton having the Chicago deal with the 2-0 to take in the top. I still think I have a pretty good team, but I felt like the way my Peyton team would have played out, and Rick had a similar mindset because he took Elway in the 3rd round. I feel like that would have produced a team that I would feel like, boy, this team could really make the Super Bowl. Whereas the team I have now, yeah, they could make it, but I don't feel like so confident.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think anybody really feels confident because, although Rick did say he liked every one of his picks, so I'll give it up to Big Rick. He says that probably means I'm going to do terrible this year, but he really liked all of his picks this year. sometimes it works like that. It works that way where everything falls to you, and you have a guy you're waiting on, and everybody passes on him, and you still get him. But I felt like a lot of times this year, because we're drafting 17 teams from only a pool of 28, that there was a lot of times where people were like, "Oh man, I almost got the guy, and he just got taken a few picks in front of me." That happened more to me this year than in past drafts.
Yeah, well, I actually had an opposite experience. I mean, I do feel like 17 out of 28 is going to be really interesting because each of these teams should have weaknesses, although everyone seems to have the same weakness, which is pass blocking. But, when you start playing the game, there should be weaknesses out there, a lot of them. But maybe I was over-optimistic in some other drafts in Battle Royale. Maybe the disappointment, maybe not get too hyped up for any one unit. I was excited, I think, when there was a quarterback that I almost got. Maybe not. I wanted to make sure I got A-Bear or somebody else. Or Jim McMahon, that's right, once it got down to that. But I personally didn't have a lot of disappointment. I had a lot of pleasant surprises, actually. The Jet linebacking crew was one that I thought about taking with a 4-3 would have went really well. They play 4-5-6 as a 4-3 because Lance Mel can play outside linebacker, and that would have complemented my Bears front four well. But I wasn't totally thrilled with that because I knew you weren't going to take a linebacking core until late, and I was okay kind of punting on that once I got the Seattle secondary. So I actually had a lot of things that slipped to me that I was happy about, but maybe it's just part of it is, like I said, I was pretty well prepared. I didn't do all the spreadsheet crazy stuff. I did some, but I was pretty well prepared in terms of, 1 to 17 each position and really understanding the depth in each position and having a good ranking in each position and what I could maybe get away with or what I needed to prioritize. So I felt pretty well good from that standpoint. And I didn't go spreadsheet crazy, but I did a little spreadsheet, but I probably did a little too much. I should have took Peyton at number 2. So.
Well, I think your draft spot, if you're either at the top of a round or the bottom of a round, the first or second pick, those are always fun spots to be in because you can double up on 2 units, and so you're not waiting as long to make your next pick. Of course, you're waiting a long time between between your groups of picks, but I think a lot of good things can happen in those draft spots.
Yeah, I think generally I like being closer to the bottom of the first round. Unless you've got some super dominant stuff near the top of the first round. If I'd taken Peyton, I'd probably feel differently. But because I feel like the quality you're going to get in that second pick. But this year, I don't know. I think there was a lot of solid depth. Maybe not a lot of difference here between what you get in the late first round and maybe what you get even in the early third round. So, So yeah, give me the higher first round pick. And it worked out well. I mean, I had units that were high on my board every round. And what's good about having picks near the beginning or end of a round with the wraparound is that you have a much better idea of what's available for your next selection. Like you said, if you're picking 9th, if your mix picking 9, you're going to wait 16 picks until his next selection. He can't say, okay, I'm going to take the offensive line this round, and this linebacking crew should be there for me next round. Maybe not. There could be a run of linebackers and they all go. Whereas, I'm picking the end of round 2, took the Rams returners. I knew Indianapolis halfback or St. Louis halfback is definitely there for me because I'm only going to wait one guy. So there is an advantage there, I think. So ideally, probably you'll have to have a set like 1984 or 1973 or something where there's a couple of really dominant players, especially 1984. And you're picking near the top of the first round, and then the rest of the draft you have wraparounds. So that would work out ideally. So it probably did work out. We'll see how that does this year. If the teams at the top do better, although usually I don't think the teams at the very top have done the best. It's been scattered throughout.
It works. It works in cycles. You never know. I've seen people who pick first win the league, people who pick last win the league, and of course people in the middle. So you just never know.
And some things that are interesting to know. Getting the good pass defense, we know how important it is. But I mean, the Raiders secondary didn't. I mean, Dan took San Fran secondary 3rd overall, and the Raiders lasted until number 12. And those two secondaries are identical in terms of points. You would have thought the Raiders would have probably got higher, but guys maybe understanding the impact of the run this year, understanding the pass rush. Look, some of these 3-4 linebacking crews are very sexy. The Giants, Cleveland, and New England are all got they got 5s and 6s and pass rushes all over the place. Those are very sexy. Denver with the Carl Mecklenburg pick, people were interested in. Mick was going to take that. Then, Chicago was 6-6-6 at linebacker, although we turned them into a 3-4. So you could see why the secondary went a little lower than they normally would. And I think some of that has to do with the season,
Yeah, and also one thing I'll say about the secondaries is there was no secondary with 22 points. There's always that tantalizing possibility that you can get excellent pass defense if you get a secondary with 22. There wasn't a lot of extra DBs that would add to the secondary, and the highest two were only 21 points, and that played out. There was no defenses. Nobody got excellent in any category, run or pass, and only one person got poor and that was in run defense. That was Mick. Lawrence, who waited all the way till the end to take his defensive pieces. So everybody else is either average or good in every single category. So there wasn't, that, oh my God, I get 23 points out of my secondary. I'm going to get excellent no matter what. There wasn't any group like that.
Sure. And you know what, Dennis? Maybe we'll just do a draft show tonight because I kind of want to go. With some of these teams, I might want to go through their whole 10 rounds, sort of not the whole 10 rounds, but just as the 2 or 3 teams where I might have a point to make, and maybe it won't be good to do a season preview the same night. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But anyway, but the way the set is, well, look, the number of teams playing 17 teams out of 28, you'd have to feel like Butch getting the Rams secondary at 16, Jason the Washington's defensive line at 17. Those were solid picks. But maybe maybe not a pick where you are really excited with that first round pick, particularly the Rams secondary, which was a solid pick, made a lot of sense. It's a fine pick, nothing wrong with it.
Hello, Tom. Tom, you've muted yourself.
How about now?
That's better. I love it when you have such an excellent point and you hit the mute button. So yes, you're right though. Those picks at the bottom weren't that oh my God, I can't believe this. I got this unit. Is that what you were saying?
Well, yeah. I was saying that because there were so many teams, the way it turned out that a pick like the Rams secondary, which was a fine pick, nothing wrong with it at 16. It makes total sense. But normally, I think you would hope that your first round pick was a little more impactful. But I think there's just the saturation. There was so many teams that it didn't happen. Of course, you got Marcus Allen in the second round, so that's a great pick to get in the second round. All right, so going to the second round, Dennis, I'm on this screen because I like the presentation of it better. But you got to start at the bottom and go up for the even rounds. I like Marcus Allen slipping where he did. Any pick that stands out to me is really good. I felt like the Miami offensive line was really a great value pick. I think they went about where they should have gone. But look, that's the only line in the set that's going to pass block for you. The rest of us are going to live with getting sacked and the threat of the blitz. Go ahead, Dennis.
Like I said, that was Mick's pick. He was very happy to get that pick. He told me that was one of his favorite picks. Hey, Butch, I can hear your TV. Either turn down the TV or can I hit you? I hit mute.
Okay, I'll mute myself.
Okay, perfect.
What an audience! We got like 7 guys here.
I love it. I sent out the link to the group. But if you want to jump in, Butch, jump in and make a point. We'd love to hear that. But that was one of Mick's favorite picks, getting the Miami offensive line there. And, anytime you're doing these drafts, you really want something where your unit stands above the other units. And getting the Miami offensive line really means you had a superior unit that nobody was going to be able to match. I got Marino. Well, guess what? Montana's close to Marino. So if you get Montana, you're not that far off. But when you get a unit where you're far and above, and that was one of the picks in the second round that really stood out to me, was you getting the return unit from the Rams, which was far and above, was much better. I say that was one of my mistakes, not taking them. But that unit was far and above any other return unit, and it added to your receiver unit. Why don't you talk about that pick?
Well, let me just make sure I'm missing anything else. One thing to say, though, there's so much pass rush here that even with the 3-7s, the Miami offensive line could be overwhelmed. That's how much pass rush there is. But with that, but the rest of us like are going to have to play like terrified of getting free safety blitzed to death, especially against some of these 3-4s. Whereas Mickey, like, yeah, I could challenge that. I mean, the rest of us are going to challenge it, but it's going to be really interesting to coach against it. But we skipped some other picks here. You had your Cleveland pick, you had the Joe Riggs pick, Raiders. It was just a solid round. I got to say, since it wouldn't be Tom if I didn't go negative, right? I have to go negative.
Well, hold on. Before you do that, I want to point out one more positive pick. Dave Gabbert picking the San Diego quarterbacks. That was the combo that Rick used to devastate one of the other summer sprint leagues is Walter Payton with Dan Fouts. And he almost got that combo again, but thank goodness Dave Gabbert jumped in and stopped it from happening by taking the San Diego Chargers quarterback. And that Fouts card, even though it's got some picks, is still very dangerous.
Well, it's interesting, because these long pass cards are just ridiculous. Fouts has got 137, 1370. Fouts, and I think Marino is the same number. They have 18 long pass wrong units, Dennis.
Crazy.
When you and I do the modern seasons, you're seeing, Ryan Tannehill with like 16 short pass wrong units. These guys have got more long pass wrong units than they've got short pass wrong, more long pass units than a lot of decent modern quarterbacks have short pass units, or it's close. Guys got 19 in short pass wrong in the modern game. Fouts and Marino got 18 on the long pass wrong. That's not including receiver. So you're going to max that receiver, Dennis. Your long pass wrong is like 21 units.
Yeah, and look at that short pass. Look at that short pass wrong card. That's like, even if you don't hit the long pass, you're going for a short pass to reduce your pick chances. Look at that card, man. It's like that looks like a flat. That's like a flat pass card for most good quarterbacks.
Well, even short pass right, he's got 20 units, and then long pass wrong. These guys are no shrinking routes. He's got 13 long pass right units. He's got a 13, 18 long pass card. Whereas like the modern game, the 13, 14, that's like the max you're going to see in a long pass wrong column. Like Tom Brady gets like 14 long pass wrong. Fouts got 13 long pass right. Now you see all the picks. And that's going to be a problem. We mentioned the pass blocking. So you don't want to go back and try and fire it 40 times with Mr. Fouts down the field. But it can be effective. Personally, I was trying to stay away from the high pick guys. That's why I liked Elway. He wasn't too bad with the picks, and you can still go throw deep. You got to run to set up the pass. Dennis, a lot of these leagues, it depends on the quarterback. I go with my values and stuff like that. So the worst spots Neil Lomax I actually had as a number 2 quarterback in the set, and Joe Golden took him. I really felt like Joe Golden, I was reviewing the draft today in preparation for a show. Joe Golden, Mike Nemo, and Mike, we're going to call you Mike Nemo because God help us, we try to pronounce your last name. I apologize. But
Nemershka. It's not that hard. I'm probably saying it.
Yes, finding Mike Nemo. But Joe Golden, Mike Nemo, and Ron Martin, each of those 3 guys just had like a really solid draft where like every pick was like, yeah, that makes sense here, that makes sense here, that makes sense here. No reaches, nothing early, nothing that made me go, oh, gee, what are they doing? Nothing like that. Just from my own evaluation. Now, in Battle Royale, that doesn't always mean you're going to have a great team. Right. Because like one of these guys, maybe it wasn't Ron. Maybe it was Mike. I don't know. There's one of these guys who, made like a good pick every step of the way. But then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait a minute, they don't have any halfbacks. Or no, it's like, wait a minute, they don't have any running backs because they were making good picks, but they never got a running back, and now I need a running back. So it's like, okay, that's did a good job in like terms of value, but the playability, you can't overlook the playability, And all 3 of those guys are real good coaches also, which certainly helps if you get a solid all-around team and you're a real good coach. And the guys have more weaknesses, that can help. So anyway, my first negative, of course, Dennis, if I'm going to go negative, who am I going to go negative against? It's the defending Battle Royale champion, of course. Just like when I spent about 20 minutes killing Paul for drafting George Rogers and Derek Dickerson, and he went on to win the Super Bowl with George Rogers being the Super Bowl MVP in a game that I was broadcasting. I'll kill Rick's pick here. This Tampa Bay tight end fullback group, I think it's a nice group. Jimmy Giles got a real good card. Bobby Bell's got whatever his first name is, Bell's got a good blocking back card. James Wilder can be a good blocking back for you also. He can also run the ball, but he fumbles a little bit, but he's a good short yardage runner. But second round for that unit, I felt was way too high How do you feel about that Tampa Bay pick, late second round, Dennis?
Well, like I was saying earlier, you want a group that's going to be above and beyond the rest. That Giles half the tight end card, it's got the yardage. It's got the most yardage on any tight end in the set.
It's a great tight end card, number one tight end card out there. Yes.
Right. So he gets that. He gets like the 6'5" blocking back. I don't know how explosive they are running the ball, but
they're short. They're short yardage. This James Wilder is the fullback there. He's a short yardage runner, but he fumbles a little bit. But he does block and receive well. And they also have a pure blocking back, like a second tight end guy who's pretty good as well.
Yeah. This Michael Reeves wanted to jump in and say something. Michael, are you there? We have a caller on line 1. Houston, hello. Michael, use your mic.
That's I think you're off.
It's in your name. Hello. Do you have him muted?
Do I have him muted? No, I don't think I do. Try to say something now, Michael.
A minute ago.
There you go. I can hear you now.
There you go.
Okay.
I think I did have him muted.
Hey, I just wanted to throw in something real quick, Dennis. Tom today, in preparation for this, had sent me an email, but he was also nice enough to thoroughly review my entire draft, and it's a lot of insight, especially from someone who's a rookie. I mean, this is my 5th draft, but I've never drafted number 1 unit based. I've never been in a retro league, so this was all brand new to me. So to be honest, you want to go in with the strategy, but how the picks affect what you're going to do later. And it's funny because you were mentioning Dan Fouts, and had he only slipped 2 more spots, and if that gentleman who wanted the Miami offensive line so badly, I don't know if Fouts would have been available there had he changed his mind. Dennis,
well,
I'm not sure.
He already had a quarterback.
So Dennis, would you have thought about getting Fouts there?
Well, no, for who? For you?
Well, in round 2, pick 10, you picked the Cleveland tight ends. If Fouts were available, then would you have gotten him?
Oh yeah, I had him lined up. I wanted that. I love having an offensive card like that. Definitely.
Okay, that was my point, because Tom had mentioned and he had noticed some of my drafting it started to go downhill. I was replicating some things. It didn't make sense because the personnel units that I was getting wasn't matching a certain strategy here. And again, I think moving forward, after going through one draft, I'm going to realize it's a little bit better to come in with a strategy. But I'm just going to be honest with you. Once that Fouts pick went off, it fell apart. For me, it just completely fell apart, because if you look, another quarterback wasn't selected until Elway, which is like 13 or 14 picks later. And he was on my board, and I really liked him, but I just didn't think at that point that he was worth a reach that far in advance. And now I'm stuck thinking, okay, I've got to get some hammer basically that I can rely on for 20 to 25 carries a game. And that's how you wind up with the Atlanta group with Gerald Riggs. But then past that, it seems like all my picks were predicated upon who was picking in front of me. I just didn't feel like as you go forward, there just wasn't a strategy. And I just wonder, do you guys, when you're drafting, because I know you've been in a lot of these, do you literally go with a strategy bullheaded and that's just the direction that you're going to go? Or do other people's picks kind of flip the script as far as, you know what, I'm going to be a long or short and long passing team. I'm not going to be ground and pound because all the ground and pound people are gone.
Dennis, you want to answer that first or what?
Sure. Well, for what I do is I break it down. So we have 17 teams. So I want to have the top 17 or 18, because sometimes a unit will get destroyed by somebody taking guys out of it. So I want that many units for each position. And then I break those units into tiers. So I'm okay if a guy takes a quarterback from tier 1, because if there's not another tier 1 quarterback left, I'll switch over to a tier 1 halfback or tier 1 fullback or another unit that gives me value in multiple positions.
I'm listening to them talking. Okay, I'm
so, oh, we got some more background stuff. Anyway, hi, how are you? Is that Mrs. Joe Golden or Mrs. Keith Mowbray?
I think it's Mrs. They didn't realize they were talking, and you should continue.
Okay, so anyway, I think they do realize it, and welcome to the show. But anyway, like I was saying, you want to be able to have some flexibility. So if somebody takes somebody that you were really counting on, you got to have another way to go. You may not get the number 1 quarterback on your list, but you might get the number 5 quarterback and the number 3 receiving group on your list. So you just want to have value. Every pick value. Try to get something that separates you from the pack. And if you do that enough times, you'll have a playoff team. And then after that, who knows?
Of course, you have to coach them as well. But for myself, I would say I pretty much agree with Dennis. No, you can't go in, but you have to have maximum flexibility. I think what you do is, like Dennis said, you have to rank every unit. You got to rank them 17 deep. Some units you got to go more than that, like running backs, wide receivers, defensive backs, special teams, returners rather, because those are units that are going to get destroyed, from guys getting taken off of them. And then you have to have, and then I think it helps. You don't have to do this, but it helps to have an understanding for the dynamics of the set. So so this set, what is it? If you have examined this set, there's a lot of long passing, there's a lot of pass rush, there's not a lot of pass blocking. You have to run the ball to set up those bombs. If you try and bomb away, you're going to get hit with sacks and picks if you're not making the defense call run enough. So you got to understand that dynamic to the set or your own dynamic if you don't agree with that. And like Dennis said, you got what I always say is, well, what can I live with? What can I live with, and what do I really want to have? And what are the benefits of this pick? I mean, the combo chart, when it's done well, when it's done properly, and I had at least 2 errors this year that we know of already. Where is the combo chart? I think it's here. Am I still sharing, Dennis?
Yep, I see your screen.
Okay. The combo chart to me is gold. You got to understand, okay, if I'm going to, if I take, what do these 4-3 defenses do for me? Wow, I'm 27 plus going all the way to the end on these 4-3 defenses until I get to Minnesota. So if I get a 4-3 run defense, like I'm either guaranteed or like at 16 out of 17 that I'm going to get at least a good run defense. But if I'm playing a 4-3, what does that do in the secondary? If I take a run defense early, I'm not getting one of these top ones. Maybe I get a 19 or an 18. Well, what happens at the 19s? Okay, I'm not going to get a good unless I get one of these top 5 linebacker groups. At 18, all right, I'm still going to get at least an average. I'm not going to go poor. Oh my gosh, if I fall down to 17, I got to make sure that no matter what, I don't go below this Seattle linebacker group and end up with a poor, which Lawrence could tell you about because he's listening. And of course, Jason, no one's made the Super Bowl with a poor, and then recently completed Battle Royale, a poor against the run. But that's the modern set. We'll see how Lawrence does. Similarly, the 3-4s, what do they do for me? All right, you took the Giants, right? Wow, bang! It's a guaranteed good against the run, pretty much. Let me not accidentally take New Orleans and miss out by a quarter of a point. So if I'm going to get a guaranteed run by taking the Giants, I can probably skim on my linebacking crew. Let me look at the pass combos, blah 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 blah. But maybe if I get a good 3-4 linebacking crew instead, I'll be good against the pass if I get these certain groups. So, like that interplay between the defensive line units, the linebacker units, and the defensive back units, like to me, that's something that you got to understand before you come into the draft, and you got to have a plan for how you want to address it. Like to me, one of the reasons why I feel like I should have taken Peyton is because also in this set, 3-4 defense, I keep saying it over and over again, so I know he's like a broken record. Ton of pass rush, not a lot of pass blocking. You get an average 3-4 defense that's average, a good pass rush. You can probably play pretty good defense under these rules in 1985. And it might not be the case in 2015, but it's the case in 1985. So you can make an argument that focusing on defense early might not have been the way to go, but I would say that's only if you're getting the right offensive players. And outside of Peyton and maybe Joe Montana, I probably would have gone defense anyway, and I did go defense with my very first selection. But those are some of the things I was thinking about coming in, and I think people need to think about. But you have to have flexibility. You have to have flexibility,
right?
Because what's going to happen, like you say, well, boy, Dan Fouts should be there. He's only 2 picks away. I'm going to get Dan Fouts. It's going to be a business. That Dan Fouts is gone, and now you're panicking. Oh, man, what do I do? I didn't get Fouts. No, when I'm picking in any draft, I don't care if it's a rookie draft or a Battle Royale draft. I'm picking 13th. You damn well better believe I've got 13 options. Because if the top 12 guys go, I got to pick somebody. So I feel like you got to plan worst case scenario. And we all have things we like. We all have styles we like. I mean, Jim Riley is going to draft defense at almost every time. That's just the way he likes to play. Rob Martin is a defensive guy. There were good defensive units this time, so he took it, So, I mean, guys have styles. Lawrence is an offensive guy. Rick, I think, maybe does the best job of anyone in these Battle Royale leagues in really taking a holistic approach and coming up with a team style and, making sure that his pieces fit together. He does a tremendous job with it. It's no surprise. He won last year. He's had other success. So there's a lot of different ways to do it, but the number one thing to say is I think you have to be flexible. You got to be flexible, but you got to understand the set and you got to understand the tiers, like Dennis said. I mean, there's a reason why quarterbacks lasted because they weren't that great. There's a reason why running backs went higher because there wasn't much depth there. There's a reason why the defensive backs stayed around a long time because guys are like, the passing game is not that great. These, 18 and 19-point secondary units aren't that great. I'm going to be average anyway. Let me take something else. There's a reason why the offensive lines didn't go that highly because they all sucked. That's how it's like outside of Miami. There was one offensive line outside of Miami that had somebody going, oh man, I can't wait to get this offensive line. So guys took them like San Diego and Cleveland and New England, and they were solid picks. But it was, in most modern leagues, you're getting a lot more bang for your buck when you take an offensive line early. But so those are all solid picks, But I think normally you'll see a little more out of the offensive line, or there's more pass blocking, whatever. I mean, the second best pass blocking line's got like 1-7 on it, a bunch of 5. So you're still going to be susceptible to pressure. So I think all the things come into play, and I've gone on way too long about that, I guess.
Yeah, let's get back to the
let's
draft.
get back. Yeah, let's get back to beating up teams and making bad picks, which brings us to my team. Okay.
Wait, first, there's no bad picks 2 rounds for you. Let's go back to my last favorite pick for round 2. Is the lack of the round. The Indianapolis halfbacks by Dale.
You give me a chance to talk about. You asked me about my Rams returners. You give me a chance to talk about them, Dennis.
That's a good pick, though. I thought you wanted to talk about bad pick.
Well,
you were ready to bash yourself.
I was teasing about the bad pick, but go ahead. You were going to say a good pick, Dennis? Is that what you're saying?
Well, basically, the last 2 picks of round 2, the Rams returners and the Indy halfbacks, were just fantastic. Having the Rams returners, like I said, is so much above another returner unit. You have 10 more yards per kick return, which is crazy. And he's got that kick return touchdown on 4. So you might see a lot of guys squib kicking or praying for a touchback. There's not a lot of touchbacks in this set either. So he's going to get a lot more opportunities than he would in 2015. And then the Indy halfbacks really help Marino get the run calls that he needs to be even more effective. So those 2 final picks of round 2 really rounded out the round and were 2 of my favorite picks.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mentioned whether I did a lot of spreadsheet work or not. I've used Battle Royale in the past as like an experimental league for my spreadsheet work, but then I've used this spreadsheet in the other leagues based upon what I find here. And one of the things I've done, and I don't do this in every league, and I do this stuff more in Battle Royale actually than some of the other leagues. But I try and find ways to quantify certain things, and with the returners, what I did was, believe it or not, Dennis, a couple years ago, I think after the 83 Battle Royale, I looked at the stats and I figured out how many kick returns there were and how many returnable punts there were based upon how many punts. You can look at the league stats, and I'm like, all right, 85 is not too different. So I figured out how many returnable kicks there are a game, how many returnable punts there are a game. So then I took the return yardage, right? And figured out how many yards per game that was. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And with Ron Brown's tremendous, see what makes the Ram thing so good this year, the return group so good. And Ron Brown is way far ahead of anybody. He gives you 144 return yards per game, where no one else is even over 115. Okay, so I'm 10 yards. I know we like to get the yards from the scrimmage, but if I told you I was going to give you a running back that gave you 29 yards more a game than the average running back, you'd be like, that's pretty good. And some of this is touchdowns. It's a straight touchdown. So, and then the punt returner is giving you 27.2 yards a game. The average was about 19 or whatever. So, but you end up getting 31 more yards a game than the second best one, not even the average. You end up getting 45 something like that, 45 yards more a game for the Rams return than the average return group in the set. And I was like, wow, for one pick to give me 45 yards more a game, it's not like that in other at other positions really. Even quarterback, once you get past like Montana and Lomax and Marino and guys like that, then I love getting the good defenses. But I said I wanted to try to get this I wanted to try to get this and see what happened, but I felt like it was risky. But I felt a little vindicated when Dan said that he was going to take him in the third round. So I think it was a little crazy to take a return group that early. We'll see what happens. So, and I agree with you about Dale. I mean, go ahead, Dennis.
No, this is Butch, though. It's not just a return unit. You have receivers, you have a running back. I mean, it's a versatile group. And that group, I think, that was a great pick, because if Dan hadn't taken him, I would.
Nice.
Well, the running back isn't that good, Charles White, so I don't count him in there. Henriella does have a pretty decent card. It's not a top shelf card, but it did open me to not having to take a receiver group early, and he could start. So I had the option to take one of those flanker groups like San Diego or Pittsburgh or Philly, or one of those groups that had a great flanker and a weak split end. Errol could play. The Philly split end is pretty decent because of the yardage.
Yeah.
But I did open me up to those groups with the good flanker and the weak split end, which was a bonus. Although I was trying to get a better split end than Elliott even as it went based upon the wide receiver rankings. But also I did love that Colts pick. I was hoping to get the Colts. That was my choice. I was going to take Colts halfbacks or the Rams returners. And Stump Mitchell fumbles a lot. But Dennis, I've got spreadsheets that factor in turnovers too as lost yardage. And I was like, I don't like that. But I'm going to take a chance. Maybe he won't take the Colts. Maybe he likes the Cardinals. Maybe he likes someone else. Maybe he won't take a running back group. And I decided I'd rather, who would I live without? Like you talked about getting a unit that's above and beyond. Would I rather have Stump Mitchell and the Rams returners, or the Colts returners and the Colts running backs and no Rams returner? I decided I didn't want to miss the Rams returners, so I took him. So moving on to the third round.
And guys, one second. I love how Butch just had a point. He jumped in. Anybody, Dan, Dave, Joe, Keith, if you guys want to jump in anytime, Michael, we want to jump in again. You got a good point. Jump in. That's what this show is about. The league, and you guys are what make the league go. So you got a point. You have a take. Come on the air and say what you want.
Absolutely. And I should also say, of course, as all you guys have known me now for a couple of years. We've been doing these shows a couple of years already, Dennis. I'm very opinionated. I give my opinions on what I think is true and why. But I know I don't have all the answers. I don't think I'm the best or better than the other guys who do well, whatever. But guys have told me they'd rather hear my opinion, I guess, than be sugarcoated. So and especially this group, all these guys know me. Like Joe Golden, he's from New Jersey. He's impervious to insulting. You can tell him anything. But so I try to balance it. I try not to be as harsh as maybe at first was. So hopefully I'm not insulting anybody. So move to the third round. But anyway, but that Colts Marino combo is awesome. I mean, Jesus.
It's going to be fun for Dale.
Yeah.
Not for us.
They're going to the third round picks that I like to like. I mean, this Stump Mitchell, he's got a great running club, but he fumbles a lot. So that's going to be really that could be, boom or bust over there with that pick. Now, this pick with Dan had a really interesting draft. I sent him an incredibly lengthy email about it, trying to get his feedback. But, look, it was a Friday. It was a work day. Guys didn't all get to email me back. But he took the Dallas wide receiver group here, which I thought was a questionable pick. And Dan's a real good coach and has success and knows what he's doing. I know Tony Hill's got a great card maxed out. That's, fine. Doug Cosby's real good, one of the top tight ends, and not a lot of good tight ends. But that flanker is only 5'10" deep, and I feel like it's a long pass set. And there were other flanker groups in the return game. So I figured I even kind of sent him a joking email after he made this pick. You take this Dallas selection early, you're kind of saying I have to get like the Pittsburgh, Minnesota, or who's the other, or the New England return group. Those are the three that had a real good flanker to justify a high pick, because this was the first wide receiver group off the board. And the way the draft played out, he wasn't able to get one of those return groups. So I kind of felt like he had to get Louis Lips or one of the two flankers, Anthony Carter or Irving Fryer, as a return group to justify the Dallas pick. And maybe he took a gamble saying that, or maybe he likes Renfro, doesn't care about the 5'10" bomb. I don't know. What do you think about the Dallas wide receiver group there, Dennis?
Well, it's funny. There's so many explosive receivers in this set, and to see somebody that only has 10 units deep, that's kind of the oddball. So yeah, I agree with you. I do like getting a value of getting a tight end in a wide receiver set, because it was really difficult to get a good solid 2 tight end set going. So I see the angle on that side, but you really did need to take those New England returners or the Minnesota returners or the Pittsburgh returners. If you would have got that, I think it would have looked a lot better.
And I think that was Dan's plan, and I think he just got screwed with the way the draft played out. And also I would say I just saw that Tony Hill is only 12, 18 deep, so he's not even max deep. Well, 12, 18 deep is fine, but 15, 21 is pretty nice. And again, this is the first group. You had the Cincinnati or Miami groups, which had 2 guys that were really good. I do like getting the tight end, but also, even if you're going to go that route, I like the Green Bay group better for that, because I feel like Paul Kaufman is not that much worse than Doug Cosby. Neither one of them can go deep. Cosby is better flat, no doubt about it. Cosby is better than Kaufman. But James Lofton is dynamite. And then if you get screwed on the flanker, Philip Epps is still a pretty solid flanker. He's 12, 18 deep. He's got good yardage. Certainly better than Renfro. So right. I like the Green Bay wide receiver group much better than the Dallas wide receiver group for that.
But look at the quarterback.
There?
Yeah, well, look at the quarterback he took, Danny White, he's just a flat pass guru. So he's not worried about the long pass set. He's just going to focus on the flats and try to flat you to death.
Well, he didn't know for sure then who he was going to get, but I think that's a misconception of Danny White. I know he's an excellent flat pass card, but look, he can throw deep. He's got 7-12, not great for this set, but that's not bad. And then the short passing has got 12. He's not that good short pass.
No, he's not.
He's got 12, 15 short pass. So I didn't have Danny White that high ranked myself, but
you're almost better off throwing deep. If go flat or deep with that card.
Yeah, which is like the modern game. A lot of quarterbacks in the modern game aren't good short. So yeah, you're right. And so maybe it's gonna be Danny White, Doug Cosby. But we talked about that earlier. How do we feel about a West Coast approach in this rule set with so many 3-4 defenses?
Yeah.
I don't know, but of course Dan's an excellent coach. He just played. He is kind of was kind of intrigued by the West Coast when he used it in some midfield with Teddy Bridgewater and Chris Ivory. I remember him posting about that. But now also, at least Dan drafted a pretty decent running card. Craig James the round before, and then the other guys can receive Craig James and Tony Collins. So maybe he's looking more West Coast. It'll be interesting to see how it goes. The rest of his draft I thought was real good, and his defense worked out real well. Go ahead, Dennis.
I was going to say, if we're going to go back to the round 3 thing, two coaches, and they're texting back and forth with me. Keith pointed out that he was really happy to get the Philadelphia pass or defensive line in the 3rd round because they had such a good pass rush, and Mike Nemo was happy to get the Miami wide receiver group there, which also included a tight end, Dan Johnson, but he was happy to get that explosive wide receiver group in that spot. So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah. I feel like not all groups are created equal, right? Just because you've got 2 units with 15 run points. Well, it's no great revelation, of course. I mean, the pass rush is very important. But yeah, this Philly 3-4, 5-4, so it's only 14. But look at that pass rush on a 3-4. It goes 12, 8, 12 with a 3 asterisk. So I mean, that's pretty awesome, because I screwed up with Kansas City and New England. You had guys like Dan Moore and Joe Golden knowing they had a secret +1 here. And Dan did an awesome job there by getting New England later in the draft. I think it was round 4 and 5 or around 5 and 6. Dan paired line in round 5 with the Jets linebackers in round 6. And you have a guy who picked his front 7 in round 5 and round 6 and got a good run out of it. And not only a good run, but a good overall. I don't think anyone else did that. And that's a tremendous job of him. And I heard about me. Dennis, and I mean, there were a couple years ago with the Jets defensive line, I think. So I think what we need to do, Dennis, is when I send out the file, we got to have a couple of volunteers offer to double check everything. So that way, if there's still a problem, I can blame someone else.
That sounds good. Well, you already say up front your mileage may vary with this thing. It's just an aid. It's not the authority. So you never go by the spreadsheet. Always do a double check yourself. That's the lesson.
Yeah.
I also wanted to mention the Green Bay wide receiver
Yeah.
group. Like you said, that was another group that you would have maybe targeted instead of the Dallas wide receiver group. A couple of coaches mentioned to me that they were. I think Mick said that he was really disappointed on missing out on that group. Joe took him a couple spots right before him, and that Paul Kaufman card is not just a tight end card, but it's a really good tight end card. So that was a nice unit to grab there.
I think I had Kaufman as a number 7 tight end. He is a 6. Cosby's definitely better. We've already said that. But Kaufman's pretty good. And Lofton is max deep, but like you said, maybe Dan's going was close more. Or I really think I think he was hoping to get one of those flank returners later, but maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't know. Epps is, and maybe I don't know. Maybe Renfro's better flat, but I mean Epps is 12, 18 deep, 1926. He's a legitimate number 2 steal yardage here. So so but more than one way to skin a cat. Having said all that, I think Dan's final team is good, and Dan's a good coach. So I'll probably be picking him to make the playoffs when we get around to that. And I thought Dan did a really good job. That's why one of the things I emailed was to find out what the guy was thinking. So I'm curious if Dan was thinking that I'm going to draft one of those returning flankers later, and then maybe the New England Jets thing presented itself and he couldn't do that, and maybe other guys are drafting things like the Pittsburgh return unit earlier than he thought. So I'm curious. I'll be curious what Dan's mindset was going into that Dallas pick. Was he planning on adding the flanker later? Was he planning on going a little more ball control West Coast? I'm curious about that, and I look forward to finding out from him.
Okay.
He usually listens, so I'm sure he'll email us or post on it.
So before we leave round 3, you went after this.
I'm not even close to leaving round 3.
We need to leave round 3. I mean, we need to speed this up. This is ridiculous. But before we leave, you bashed the Super Bowl champion. Rick's pick of Tampa Bay, of the Tampa Bay tight end unit in round 2. I'm going to bash the Super Bowl runner-ups pick of the Philadelphia quarterbacks at the bottom of round 3. Ouch. What in the heck? I know Jason is in love with Randall Cunningham and rushing quarterbacks, and even in this set where Randall is terrible and Jaworski's going to start most of the time, I talked to him, he is going to use Randall to end run on some plays, but even with that is not a great quarterback unit to take at that spot. Don't you agree?
I couldn't agree more. I hate to say something too negative. Actually, I don't hate to do it, but I probably shouldn't. I don't think that was a very good selection. I do think that Jaworski's card is good enough to start in this league, but I had him in very, very much in the bottom tier. Maybe more of around 7 to 10 type of pick. And I love running quarterbacks. I've seen some great Randall Cunningham cards. Even this running card only on Randall Cunningham is not that great. What is so good about this card that you're going to do? Even the must run, he's only got 2 to 5, 10 yards or more. And right in this era, Dennis, as you pointed out, is -6, -7, -8 on some of these running backs, and then his passing card goes wrong. Like sometimes you use the running quarterback, Dennis. The guy's getting a run, you start bombing away. He's got 8 long pass, 4 incomplete units, and 4 and 5.5 clean interceptions.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? You can't throw a pass. You're going to throw the ball down the field. I'll get Randall Cunningham. If you bring in Randall Cunningham, I hope it's against me. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. He will use him. He loves that guy. But if you look at the quarterbacks that were taken just after this, you had Dave Craig, the Seattle quarterback unit. You had the Kansas City quarterback unit. You had the Dallas quarterback unit. So all those New Orleans quarterback unit went off in 2 rounds from now. So you had so many other quarterbacks that you could have taken and had more success. I think that's going to bite him in the butt. But we'll find out. Maybe we're wrong.
Yeah, by the way, I think we're just going to do the round by round. We're not going to do an overall cohesive thing. So we're okay at a slower pace, even though we should pick it up, as you said. But it'll slow down in a minute because once you get past the 4th or 5th round, it pretty much disappears. But as long as I stay in the 3rd round a little, but yeah, I would say, I'll stay in the 3rd round is a little longer. Michael and I emailed back and forth, by which you mean I just sent him long emails yelling about all of his picks. Sorry, Michael. So he says it's not that way, but I feel that way sometimes. I need to be more I need to be a nicer person, a kinder, gentler Tom Cook. But, I know he loves Eric Dickerson, but you just drafted Joe Riggs in the second round. Now, of course, Dennis, this is the exact same complaint I had about Paul Mankiewicz before Paul won the title with Eric Dickerson and George Rogers. I think the 83 set. But I just felt like, Dickerson fumbles a lot. It's not even that great of a Dickerson card. Carries the ball a lot. It is real good to guess right. Dickerson might have slipped a little further. I would like to see him get a different unit there. But again, this was Michael's first time. Michael's a pretty new Strat player. Dickerson was one of his favorite players growing up. So I probably shouldn't think of it that way. And also as a fun factor, Michael said, look, I'm going to have a lot of fun playing with these guys. Guys I loved when I was a teenager. So, but in terms of value, it felt like that pick was too high. And some other interesting stuff happened here. Minnesota returners I thought was interesting. I felt like that was a little early for them. I would have rather gone for a really good split end receiving set. Look, instead of Minnesota returners, you could just take in Cincinnati or Miami, and you got your wideouts. Anthony Carter's not that great of a punt returning card, is he?
No, not that great. He's average.
So we all love his lump ass card, but you want to just take a wide receiver group and you're done. You could take Green Bay and have a tight end also. There was some good DLs with pass rushing that started going in here. A lot of other good picks, but yeah, Philly pick stands out as a pick that I think went way too early.
Hold on. I'm wrong about that. Anthony Carter has the third best punt return card in the set, so he does have an impact.
It's not better. Is it better than Lewis Lips?
It is better than Lewis Lips.
Okay, never mind. Lewis Lips is real good at return.
If you sort by punt return yardage, he's 16.91. Lips is really close at 15.0, but Lips has the touchdown.
Please don't tell me this draft file number is unadjusted.
That's what I'm doing.
Anthony Carter's true punt return average is 7.8 once you account for the fair catches, and Louis Lips's is 12.2.
Nice.
So I'm assuming that Anthony Carter got 13 fair catches. Louis Lips has two. So
I stand corrected.
Yes, and I'm vindicated. I got one good point out of the whole show. That was it. But anyway, so going to the fourth round, and this hurt Dan. I think the quarter went here in the middle of the third, and then Louis Lips went after that because these guys at least are good returners. The New England Friar, I don't think is a terribly good returner. So. But again, I don't even know if he was thinking that way. Maybe he was thinking West Coast. I'm really curious. I want to hear from Dan about that. We get into the fourth round, and I thought that Bill Kenny slipped. I've been a fan of a lot of these Battle Royale leagues in taking a quarterback second, third round, like one of those quarterbacks like fifth, sixth, seventh in the set, like a Matthew Stafford type in most years, and maybe not Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady, who you got to take so early. But I thought Bill Kenny, he's not as good as those other guys, but I had Bill Kenny pretty highly, and I was getting excited thinking he might get to me. I was surprised he was still there. And you're Ron Martin. You got the Dallas defensive line, the San Fran linebacker, the Dallas secondary. You're going to be good. And then you get a pretty solid quarterback who's low turnover there in the fourth round. I really thought that was a minor steal. I thought that Bill Kenny slipped. What do you think about that?
I agree. And, here's an interesting thing. Ron's really humble here because like I said, I texted everybody. I asked them what they felt about, their biggest steal, their biggest heartbreak. This is what Ron's text was. I'm going to read it to you verbatim. Overall, I was outdrafted. This is one of the hardest leagues to draft. I need to do more of them and spend more time analyzing every position and coming up with a plan and not reacting to what other teams draft. I was actually happy at the end with the Steelers kicker punter. So here he is saying, if this is what he does when he's getting outdrafted, I'm afraid what's going to happen when he actually has time to prepare and put some spreadsheets together, because that was a pretty good draft, I thought.
Well, I agree, Ron. You blew it. You messed up. The team is done. 2-14. Let's move on. No, but no. But that's like I said earlier. I think Ron and a couple of guys around him just really solid drafts with no mistakes, pretty much. But that shows you the level of this is a very competitive summer sprint. The Battle Royale leagues are usually very competitive, but there's a lot of very good coaches here. There's a lot of online championships here. There's guys who don't have the championships yet, but have only been online a couple of years, and you can tell already that they're very good coaches. But it shows you the bar that Ron sets for himself. The guy is forced to meet for championships, Dennis. So I don't know what he's talking about. I do wish he hadn't taken San Fran linebacker second because it screwed up my chance at an excellent run defense. But I mean, he did a really solid job. I mean, Bill Kenny here is an excellent example of that. And again, I'm sure Ron probably didn't go into the draft. We're talking about flexibility, saying, "Boy, I got to get Bill Kenny." But when he's there in the 4th round, he's like, "Yeah, I'm taking him." And I thought these offensive lines that started going in here were going like in the right spot. Like, okay, I got to run the ball. You know, Sean Riley, you know, Chicago, Cincinnati, Cleveland went around in the 5th round. Look, there's no groups out here that pass block great. And you got to run to set up the pass. Some of these guys don't even have great running backs, but you know, at least you're going to try. You know, so I thought those were solid picks. Like there's so many good linebacking groups. I don't have a problem with any of them going 4th, 5th, 6th round. You never know when the run is going to start. I like the Indianapolis group, the outside blitzing. You know, DB19 started going. The San Diego return group to Mick. I emailed Mick about this earlier today. I had a lengthy email conversation with him. The San Diego return group, they're not very good returners, first of all. They're okay. Gary Anderson gives you a touchdown and kick returns. But all you get in the offense really is Lionel James. Because you get Lionel James and Gary Anderson, but Gary Anderson is basically a worse version of Lionel James. In the 1985 set, Lionel James has got a pretty good off-tackle and run wrong card, pretty decent. And he's a tremendous receiving back. But it's only the 4th round. You just drafted Joe Morris in the 3rd round. So I feel like I just drafted Joe Morris. He got a ton of carries in the 3rd round. And now I'm drafting Lionel James in the 4th round, who only plays when I put Joe Morris on the bench. So it's like, I feel like take one or the other. Don't take both. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I hadn't thought about that, but that's a good point. I think that one of the problems with this set is there wasn't a lot of fantastic value coming out of the returners. You usually get, oh my God, this is a great receiver here. There's a 6 cornerback here. So I think guys may have jumped on the kick return, punt return units a little earlier than normal, simply because they knew they weren't going to get value out of them later on. As a matter of fact, they were almost like kickers and punters. As you saw in the last 2 rounds, there was like teams that 4 or 5 in a row, they took kick returner, punt returner, because there just wasn't anybody left. They didn't, I'm getting some 4th wide receiver out of the unit. Who cares? So that's maybe why he jumped on him there.
Well, I think there was some value. You had Darrell Green, then you had the Rams returners who were great on their own, just as returners, and then you have receivers. You have three units with receivers, but you didn't. Yeah, but you didn't have usually a couple more 6 corners floating around or something like that. So I felt like it was there, but I think also because it was receivers, it wasn't thought of in the same way because they kind of aren't that thrilled with receivers, even though we like to have the good ones. We're always not that thrilled with them. I mean, look, we had Willie Gold, Irving Fryer, Anthony Carter, and Louis Flips. I think all 4 of those guys are maxed out on the bomb with the return group. So there was some stuff there, but I think because it was receiver guys, probably thought of it the same way you did. But I didn't like that pick for Mick, who I think knows what he's doing and had a good draft otherwise. But I mean, I feel like he could have drafted a great receiver group. But he could have drafted what receivers groups went after him.
Well, you can see it right there. Washington.
But Philly went a couple rounds later. He could have taken Philly. He could have taken Washington if he wanted the possession. I didn't have that highly because of the yardage. He could have taken a defensive unit, which he didn't take until later. I'm sure one of these secondaries or linebacker groups or defensive lines would have helped him.
KC wide receiver group. Philly wide receiver group, Houston wide receiver group all went after that pick.
Yeah.
San Diego.
Houston pick. We'll get
yeah. San Diego wide receiver group is another one.
But this one ends not that great. But he ended up with a very poor receiver group. And I think this is the spot right here where if you're taking a receiver group instead of San Diego returners, you got Joe Montana, you got a decent running back card, you draft the Miami offensive line, and now you throw into a bunch of schmucks. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think that Mick, when he was talking about it, he says he was disappointed to miss out on the Green Bay wide receiver group because he wanted Kaufman to go with Montana. So that's maybe, and also the Minnesota return group, Anthony Carter, go blue. So that was probably what he was looking at. Like, oh God, if he just would have taken the Minnesota kick returner, punt returner, he just missed out on them and he had to settle for the New York Giant halfback. If he would have gotten them there, his draft would have felt differently. But like you said, not only did he wind up with poor receivers, but he has poor run defense. You can use that round 4 pick on an anchor linebacker group to make sure you get average.
Yeah, no, Mick has average.
No, he doesn't. Oh no, you're right. That's Lawrence that has the poor. Sorry.
But he could have taken the Minnesota return group because if you look at the round 1, 2, 3, he chose the Giants over them. Dave Gabby took Minnesota after. He probably wasn't thinking Minnesota would go that highly, talking about Mick.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
But Mick's a good coach. Lionel James got a good coach. I hate the duplicity in the early rounds. Not the duplicity, the duplication. I hate the duplication in the early rounds. Paul, that a couple years ago when he won the championship. So Lionel James got a good card. It's not like Lionel James doesn't have a good card, but it's like I'm taking a halfback the round. I'm taking a halfback in the fourth. I took a halfback in the third, and it's not like Joe Morris is long carries. I feel like take one of those, and then take something else good. I see he's got probably the weakest receivers in the league, and he could have certainly taken something that was at least more reasonable. Even Seattle, the Jets, those are the pretty good receiving groups out there. So, continuing the fourth round, Cincinnati, well, you see more run blocking all going. Dave Krieg's a solid pick. Again, I like if
it's Craig. It's Craig. Dave Craig. You drive me crazy with this Krieg stuff. Apollo Krieg. It's Craig.
Okay. Should I mention all of his fumbles too? But historically, not necessarily this year. But again, look, we all know the great quarterbacks are going to go early, but that doesn't mean, late second round, third round, fourth round. Well, these tier 2 quarterbacks, how much better are they than the bottom guys? I had some guys I wanted. I was waiting a little bit because they were still there and taking a chance. But Dave Craig was one of those guys. He got a pretty decent card. I think it's harder in this set. I think because I still have picks because it's not the modern game. You know what I'm saying? But it's still better than the bottom tier guys. So I think that's a pretty nice spot to get him. Dan told me he was deciding between Danny White and Bobby Abreu. Went for Danny White. Let's move on to the fifth. Denver Wells fine. All these Wells were fine when they went. You need to run the ball, and look, he's got the Denver. Talking about Dale now, he's got the Denver well, the Indianapolis halfbacks, and Dan Marino. So that's something to think about there when you run up against Dale. We go to the fifth round, which is going 1-17 down, not 17-1. I was really happy to get Bobby Abreu here, Dennis, where I really kind of wanted either Bobby Abreu or Jim McMahon. Once it got down to these, I felt like they were definitely better than the next tier quarterbacks. I have my own crazy formula, which I don't think is very accurate, but I had Bobby Abreu number 8 in the set. I think I ranked the turnovers a little more negatively than perhaps I should. I already knew that my team was weird. I had a turnover running back.
I'm back. Sorry, I had to
That's
go.
okay.
I had to add a little cornstarch slurry to my crock pot chili.
That's right. I'm talking about Abreu. But I felt like, all right, he's low turnover. He can throw the bomb good. Guys are going to call run. I'm going to make sure I get good receivers was something I wanted to make sure happened. So I was happy with that pick. Again, I said it earlier, but Dan was brilliant in ferreting out that New England was a 6.55. Takes them here. Took the Jets in the round 6 to get himself a good. Dan's defense is going to play real well. We'll have to watch and see what he does. Now, this Rick pick was interesting. Now, he said, sorry, Dennis. Dennis, talk about this for a minute, okay? Because we're only going to do this 10-round thing. We're not doing anything else tonight. You find defensive line, number 8 overall, because you get Colin Mecklenburg, a 6'12", 11" inside linebacker, okay? Now, we both know, you and I know, knowing each other, that for the minute you did that, you're going to save your linebacking group in the draft. Was that your thinking?
Right, but no, Rick was right by saying sorry because I was going to take the Miami group that round because that was my last chance at getting good, unless I switched to a 4-3. No, there was no chance of getting a good unless I played a 3-4 and got Miami. There were several linebacker groups. Pittsburgh went the Miami group was the last one that was available then because I would have been able to get 27 points on the pass defense. So once he did that, then I was definitely waiting till the end to take my linebackers.
All right. Now once you took Miami, with his astute apology, see what you're going to do. Now, you said you were definitely waiting to the end. Now, were there any groups down there to the end that you wanted more than others? I mean, I thought New Orleans was one you might want. You surprised me by going for St. Louis because they have the weak outside linebackers. The right outside's a 5, so the only left outside's a 0.
Right.
So you telling me that? So pretty much once Miami was gone, you were going to wait till the end and just take whatever the hell.
No, and I would have taken New Orleans. New Orleans would have been a good selection for me because at least their zero has some pass rush to it. But I like the St. Louis pick simply because it gives me 2 6-run defenders at linebacker in the middle.
Inside linebacker, yeah.
Yeah, so those fourth and
you're gonna make some goal line stands.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather have that, and then I can shift one of the sixes out there to cover for the zero if I need to. So then you try to throw at that zero all the time. He'll have some company out there. So, I like the playability of the St. Louis group.
Yeah, I didn't realize when you took them that the right outside's a 5. So he didn't really need any help. So that's great. And of course, Mecklenburg as an inside linebacker, 6'12", 11, will be doing a lot of blitzing. He doesn't cover anybody. So that'll be nice for you. I mean, you get a 12 on the high linebacker and then 11 on the asterisk. So that's
here's another thing. One quick thing about the playability of that St. Louis pick is now on third downs I can move Mecklenburg to the defensive line and leave that 6. Usually when you have 2 6 inside linebackers, when it comes to third down, one of them's off the field. Well, in my case, I can leave the other 6 linebacker, the original St. Louis guy, in at middle linebacker and put Carl Mecklenburg at a defensive end spot. So I believe
that's of the pass rush, yes, and you don't have to blitz him. He's there.
Right, exactly.
And I believe that's EJ Jr. is your St. Louis Cardinal 6, if I remember from back in the day. Then you took the coveted pick, 83, 80, 45, the Chicago kick return, punt return. Everyone wants to get Willie Gault. Willie Gault, who is only like 16, 22 short pass, but it's all for big yardage because he was an Olympian, for crying out loud, and is always max deep. I believe he's 15, 21 deep pretty much. So I like that. Now, this was the thing. I talk about knowing the set and knowing the tiers, like what Michael was talking about earlier. Dennis, when you look at the wide receiver groups in this set, I felt like there was a lot of groups with a really good flanker.
Right.
And the split end was all right, but it seemed like the flankers were where it was at. It was like if the wide receiver unit had 2 good receivers, well, they were both real good, split end and flanker. But there seemed like a lot of groups where the flanker was real good, and the split end wasn't as good. So by you taking a split end who's really good long passing, and we already know that you're gonna throw long passes in this set, you're setting yourself up like great. Now all I have to do is get one of these flanker only groups, and which should slip a little bit because they're flanker only, and I'm in good shape. Is that part of why you like, let's say, better than some of the other returners, like New England, for example, or Fryer?
Exactly. Like the choice right there was between the New England kick returner, punt returner, and Chicago. And because Chicago had the split in position, I could wait on my flanker spot. The only thing I didn't like about taking Willie Gault there is that pretty much ruled me out of taking the Seattle wide receivers because they're the opposite of everybody else. They have they have a high yardage split end, and even though Largent is maxed, he did, his biggest hit gets strong short is plus 38. So, he's not.
Yeah, and no long gains on the card.
Right, no long gains at all. It's all yardage. So I was.
And I'm not sure that he's max deep. He might only be 12, 18. I don't remember. But go ahead.
Right, he's max short and not max deep. So he was green deep. So, yeah. So, but I'm happy with that pick. That was one of my better picks, I think.
Yeah. Now let me ask you this question: for me, Pittsburgh was the number 1 return group, receiver groups. Louis Lips is max short and long, where Anthony Carter is not max short. And Louis Lips still has plenty of yardage, even though Anthony Carter has more. Now, but those guys are all flankers. Then you got to get a split end. Now, just in terms of 1 to 4, in terms of Minnesota with Carter, Lips with Pittsburgh, New England with Fryer, and the Bears with Willie Gault, because Gault was a split end, did you have him above the Pittsburgh or Minnesota return groups, or did you have the Minnesota Pittsburgh return groups above the Chicago one?
I think I would still keep him Minnesota and Pittsburgh above Chicago. I know the position you just would have had to draft your wide receiver group differently and probably earlier than you want to, but you could still put together a heck of a combo. 40 minutes more.
Yeah, and you mentioned Seattle. I mean, Darryl Turner's card is like a Willie Gault clone card. So right. I mean, if you got Louis Lips or Anthony Carter, then you took Seattle. You'd still be in pretty good shape. And, I thought of something interesting, Dennis, that I wish I had thought of earlier, but it came into mind after I took the Rams group. And Ellard, to me, his card is not really that good for a a split end among the top 17 anyway. Probably shouldn't reveal it. People will see me playing it this year, but Dennis, if you can take a good receiver group and then you take a great returning receiver like Louis Lips or whatever, how about going 3 wide, 2 running back? If the tight end is weak, and you can have a tremendous receiver if the other guy's a weak, strong safety, or you leave him on the outside if the other guy's got a weak corner. Because in this league, you can do that type of thing. And, there's no wide die penalty in that formation. 3 wide receiver, 2 running back. Your hit is on the run blocking and maybe on the pass blocking too. I don't remember. So if you're in a set with weak tight ends for any battle royale, and you can finagle your way into, a really good starting receiver tandem and a good returner who receives really well, that's maybe a way to try and do something a little funky, So that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
So for example, up with Seattle, you can play Willie Gold, Darryl Turner, and Steve Largent at the same time.
Right. That would
and not have a wide die penalty on Kevin Mack. Of course, in your case, you'd be benching Ozzie Newsome, so you wouldn't want to do that. But if you're like me and you got Eric Sievers, it's a different. Maybe you consider it.
Yeah, and I think that you can have great success that way because, especially if you wind up waiting on offensive line, which I think you did too, because who cares if you have
anyway.
If you have a bunch of 4s and 0s on the line, who cares if they get a -1 penalty?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, my 0 left guard is now a -1. Oh no, so
no, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Moving on the 5th round. I mean, Joe Golden sent me a beautiful email, unsolicited, and they were very fine and detailed. I like Dylan Lomax's card, and I had him, believe it or not, as the number 2 or 3 quarterback in the set, based upon the turnovers as well. But he said this was his crucial moment here in the 5th round. There wasn't a lot of other stuff that he liked and needed. He didn't have a halfback. Wendell Tyler and James Brooks were kind of like the 2 he was looking at, maybe. Okay. And he took Wendell Tyler, and he wasn't sure if it was a reach. But I thought it was a fine pick. It's the 5th round. See, I mean, at this point, we talked about it, 17 teams. Everyone's going to have some weaknesses. Joe wrote, this is Crossroads pick. The offensive lines he wanted were gone. A bunch of DLs left to get to a good run rating, so there was no rush because he had the New England linebackers. The return picks didn't thrill him in terms of position players. So he went for a halfback with a decent card, but fumble potential. But I feel like Wendell Tyler's got a nice running card. It's all he can really do. He's not a good receiver. But you already got a good quarterback with Neil Lomax. You already got some good weapons on the outside with the Green Bay group. You got the New England linebacker group anchoring your defense, and you're going to be good against the run at a minimum. Wendell Tyler, I thought was a decent pick there. I'm only mentioning it because Joe said it was a crossroads pick. And what are you going to do? I mean, the backs fumbled, Dennis. What are you going to do? That's another reason why I should have taken Peyton. But I mean, there's not a lot of backs that are good and don't fumble in this set. So once you get in the 5th round, your choices are either a good card that fumbles a bit or a lousy card that holds on to it. What do you think of Wendell Tyler in the 5th round?
Yeah, I mean, and remember, you recover half of his fumbles. So don't look at it like you can't look at fumbles like you look at interceptions. You're not automatically losing the ball in that case. And you have to balance it against the set. Everybody fumbles in this set, even the good backs fumble. So there's very few that have zeros. In the 2015 set, you have a lot of guys that are zeros. In this set, there's not that many. And if they are like that, they're not great runners. So if you want a great runner, you're going to have to put up with his warts. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, well, there are a few that are good runners and don't fumble. Roger Craig James, Gerald Riggs. Even Peyton's got a 1.85, which is like an 18.5. It's not a 0. I mean, that is still green, but that maybe shows you more about the set. But yeah, there's a lot of backs that fumble. I mean, I've got Stunt Mitchell as the number 2 lead back. George Wansley is number 6. These guys fumble. I have James Brooks as the number 11 lead back. He's in red, 36.5. So it's going to be weird to play around. And obviously, none of us want a team that fumbles and throws picks and gets sacked. But it's a different era. There's going to be teams like that, and they're going to try and do it to the opponent. Similarly, I thought Mike Nemo, again, these guys did Joe Golden, Mike Nemo, Ron Martin. I give kudos to just because they were just grouped together. So I happened to notice that they all just every pick they banged out just seemed to be a solid pick. So same here, Mike Nemo. Freeman McNeil doesn't have a great card, but it's a 5th round, and you need a running back. And you got a good quarterback with Boomer, a good receiver at Miami. You're going to get wrong calls. All right, so you take the Jets and you run the ball for McNeil.
Yeah.
You know, it's a really interesting pick, and I give him kudos for Sean Riley here in the 5th round at number 13. Take the Indianapolis tight end fullback. Now, we all knew Indianapolis halfback or fullback group was a big group because a halfback group, you get Albert Bentley and George Wansley, both of who have excellent running cards. Or if you took the fullback group instead, you would have got Wansley with Randy McMillan, who's got a pretty good card, and Pat Beach is an okay tight end. He's a 6. Mark Ward is not a bad second tight end. But by this point, Bentley and Wansley are gone. So all you're getting is Randy McMillan and the tight ends. The tight ends are only okay. But Randy McMillan's got a pretty decent card. He has a lot of carries. He doesn't fumble at all. He's a good blocker, 4.5, so gets you some pass blocking. I think his flat passing is okay. So, look, if you need a running back and it's the 5th round, Randy McMillan can kind of be your lead back possibly on a team. And he's got no quarterback, and he drafted a pretty good run blocking line, a very good one with Chicago. So I thought that was kind of clever, and I was kind of hoping to get Randy McMillan. So I had a running back I could run with who didn't fumble. What do you think of that interesting pick in a depleted set, Dennis, with Indianapolis tight end fullback?
Definitely, I like that one quite a bit. I like the fact that you can run him too, and he's very low fumble. So he's one of those effective low fumble guys.
All right, now I'm going to kill one of our best friends, Dennis. Is Lawrence Green listening, Dennis?
I do not see him in the audience. So
okay, so I was going to say he may want to avert his ears. Can you avert your ears? You can avert your eyes. You got to close your ears, I guess. I don't know, or just click something else. That also works. But all right. Here's the deal. When Lawrence picked this New Orleans kicking punting unit, and I mentioned my spreadsheet work, I had them as the number 1 kicking punting unit, which most people probably did, and I thought they were a good pick. And I said, boy, you know what? Good pick by Lawrence. A little earlier than that type of a unit usually goes, but they're real good. There's a lot of ones out there that are shaky, and I felt like that made sense. But little did I realize that Lawrence was then going to leave himself with a poor run defense, Dennis, by neglecting. The Lawrence made a couple of things on Lawrence. First of all, Lawrence and I have become good friends online through all these leagues, so I can say whatever I want. He's not going to hate me too much. And Lawrence is a great guy, and Lawrence has improved tremendously in the last 2 years. He took a draft league team to a Super Bowl against Dennis. He's been overachieving in SOMIFA and SSFA. Ongoing right now, was like 9-3 or 8-4. And SSFA was not even going to win 7 games. Okay, and he is an offensive guy. He likes to draft these offensive teams. But Lawrence, I mean, he's got Roger Craig in the 2nd round. Okay. And he has no defensive units, okay? And then he drafts the Saints kicker punter in the 5th round, which is the best one, but it's still the Saints kicker punter in the 5th round. Then he takes the Washington halfbacks in the 6th round, the fumble-prone George Rogers, and neglects his defense to around 7, 8, and 10, and then makes a terrible choice.
Okay, well, let me give you go ahead.
By drafting. Go ahead. Good, Dennis.
Let me just say in evidence number 1.
You break it up, Dennis. I can't hear you.
To get anything other than an average defense, I says the worst case scenario is you're going to get average. This is before.
Dennis,
his most heartbreaking pick was not getting.
Dennis, let me interrupt you because we can't hear you at all. I don't know if the other guys can hear you. If someone can send me an instant message, tell me if they can hear Dennis, because I heard about 5% of what he just said.
No, you can't hear him. It's being buzzed out.
How about now?
Start all over again, Dennis. Yeah, we hear you now.
Okay, so anyway, Exhibit A in Lawrence's defense. I told him before the draft, I says it's almost impossible to wind up with anything worse than an average defense in this set. Looking at the combos.
Good job, Dennis.
I said you're probably going to get average no matter what. Again, now this is prior to the draft. At his one, he had his heart set on getting a top linebacker or DB group. And then after those all went, he said, okay, I'm going to take the Dallas defensive line. and that went at 114, which is one pick ahead of him. So that's when he switched up to go all offense and took the Jets quarterback and then more offense. But that was that reason why he wound up the way he did. So I don't know if that makes any difference for you. But go ahead, go back to your critical essay.
I would say that that if we were in a court of law and you were making that case for the defense, I would feel pretty confident as a prosecutor. because just because you lose out on the Dallas defensive line at number 14 doesn't mean that you have to be the only guy in the draft that takes all three of each defensive units in the last 4 rounds of the draft. Okay, doesn't mean you have to wait until round 7 to take your first defensive unit. Okay, and Dennis, I would say that in the future, if someone asks you what's the worst that happens, you probably shouldn't say it's almost impossible to get worse than average. You should probably say it's almost impossible to get worse than average, but you better make sure you don't. So it also depends on what you're picking, Dennis. Look, he takes Ken O'Brien, Roger Craig, Cincinnati receivers, on that offensive line. Bang, 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 bang. 4 very good units. No problem there. But then that's when it goes south. Because, look, he takes the Saints kicker punter in the 5th round, and then the Washington George Rogers in the 6th round. He's already got Roger Craig. George Rogers can't catch, by the way, and he fumbles a lot, okay? So it's not like he's a great complimentary halfback to take. Whereas if I looked at this earlier, if he just took like a defensive line or a linebacking group here, he's more likely not to be poor against the run. And then he compounded it all, Dennis, because it still could have been avoided. By the 10th round, when it's time to take a defensive line, he takes the Atlanta Falcons, Dennis. Now, Dennis, yeah. I played a lot with these seasons, 83, 84, 85, okay? And one thing those Falcons teams were not known for is their defense. I'll tell you that much, okay?
Well, that was the best 4-3. That was the only way. He had 2 choices: poor pass defense and average run, or average or poor run and average pass. So the only way he got average pass defense was if he took a 4-3 D line.
Yeah, that's correct. But that's only because I guess, it's a worst case scenario. I'm not going to get worse than average, and didn't take other units. I looked at this a little bit earlier. If he had taken the Jets secondary instead of the Saints kicker and punter, he would have had an average pass defense and could have taken a 3-4 defensive line and got to an average run defense very easily. So, right. I think, like I said earlier to Michael and to anyone listening, you have to look at these combination charts extensively. Hopefully you correct them for any errors first. But you have to look at these things extensively, and you got to make sure it's unavoidable. But no one's going. But it was not unavoidable in this set.
Right.
Now when you're taking your kicker and your punter and your second running back who fumbles all the time instead of defensive units in the 5th and 6th round, you wait until the 7th round. Look, you could wait till the 7th round to take your defense and still get average as long as you make sure you do it. But I mean, George Rogers, he's got a nice card guess right, but what's his fumble number in the file, Dennis? I don't think I have him.
3.6 or 3.9, something like that. I'll double check.
Yes. It's at 3.9%. It's in red. It's a very high number. And he's a 0-0 blocker who can't catch. And you already have your lead back in what's his name? In Roger Craig. So that's not the type of complimentary back I want, a fumbler who does nothing else. And he's got a really good guess right, tough yardage card, so I understand that. But, would you rather have George Rogers and a poor?
Right.
And a poor run defense, or would you rather have, I don't know, somebody else?
I agree. Yeah, that was a miss. Yeah, because he could have taken the Seattle linebacker group there. That would have pretty much been an anchor to get average. And that's what Mick did, or Mike Nemo did a few picks later.
Yeah, so now Lawrence has coached real well. Dennis, we just saw a poor run defense, only went 9-7 in the regular season, make the Super Bowl in the recently completed Battle Royale, but there was a modern season with fewer good running cards. And look, Ken O'Brien.
Sorry, I said that was Mick, not Mike. Mick is the one that did that. So go ahead.
Okay. But, hey, Ken O'Brien, Roger Craig, Cincinnati receivers doing the line. That offense is going to be pretty good, okay? But, he really should have avoided getting put in. There was easy ways for him to avoid it. That's what I'm saying. If he really couldn't avoid it, someone gets stuck, they get stuck. But he could have avoided it, and at the expense of his kicker, punter, and his Washington halfback, and perhaps some bad advice, Dennis. I don't know. Do you feel badly right now?
Oh, not at all. I'm absolutely happy when my well-meaning advice gets somebody a poor unit. That's absolutely fantastic for me. It'll help me when I play him.
and that's me being overly harsh, by pounding it in. But anyway. So I would hate. And he played not only that, it's a 4-3. It's a 4-3 poor run defense with 4 points attack on a 0 at right end. So you can't even plug the inside as easily with a 4-3.
I'll put the prediction out now. George Rogers runs for 200 yards against you, and he beats me badly with his poor run defense.
Yeah, both of those might happen. But I still think you're better off with an average. I don't care what he does. You're still better off with an average and a slightly inferior halfback than a poor and George Rogers. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Hey, now we have a pretty big audience here tonight. We talked a little bit. We talked a little bit to Michael. Talked a little bit to Butch. I wonder if we can go through this and see if we can get the other guys' thoughts before we shut this thing down. I mean.
Yeah. I don't know if any of these guys have a headset, but if anyone wants to talk, by all means, just open your mic and clear your throat in a very exaggerated fashion.
Let's start.
Shy, Dennis.
Mike Nemo, can you talk? Are you there?
This is the roll call of the damned.
Keith,
I think
anybody there? Okay, wait. If you feel like jumping in, Mike says no microphone.
Yes.
Okay, if anybody feels like jumping in, put your name in the chat box, and we'll go to you, and we'll do a quick little interview on your thoughts. But in the meantime, let's go on to round 6. I think we're on. Right?
Yeah, we're in the middle of round 6. And Dennis, you watch the chat box. Round 6, I should have started at the bottom with number 1 because it went that way. Dale was the first pick. I'll tell you, not to toot my own horn, but I was very happy getting a Philly wide receiver there. I had them as the number 3 wide receiver group in the whole set. But I'm tinkering with the wide receiver formula. I was going a little more on the yardage. It's the older season, and I know there's going to be bombs.
Yeah,
but I had number 3. But you also had them very high, right?
Yeah, I wanted them that round and had to settle for San Diego the next round or later on in that round. But that group, even if you don't have anybody to add to that group is a standalone group. That Jackson or Johnson, whoever it is, that split into that group, he's got good yardage too. Yeah, Kenny Jackson, he's got yardage kind of like Willie Galton and Darryl Turner.
Well, he's a few yards down from those guys. He's more in the 18 range than the 22 range. But he's pretty good, and I had them as a number 3 receiver group in the entire set. I don't know where you had them, but I waxed prolifically about Dan, who I know is listening now. I saw the K-State icon with the Jets linebacker group. That was a group that I thought about taking there, Dennis, because in a 4-3, they can go 4-5-6. Lance Bell slides to the outside. Dan will be playing a 3-4, as you mentioned, because he astutely picked New England the 5th round. Lance Bell will probably be on the outside for Dan a lot, but he has flexibility if he wants. But Mel as a 6th and outside linebacker gets to cover these good receiving halfbacks. So, Dan's defense with New England, he saw as a 6-5-5. Doesn't even have to play the 5. He doesn't want to because he can have more pass rush. He's got the San Francisco secondary. So suddenly, a ball control offense with Danny White and Craig James and these guys and Doug Cosby and Tony Collins is a really good receiving and blocking card. Looks a lot more palatable. And like I said, like the Dallas pick, I don't think it worked out the way he might have wanted. I could be wrong about that. But these round 5-6 picks I thought were maybe like the best combo in the draft of a guy figuring something out here. And Dan, I think, prepares pretty well. He knew ahead of time what was going on and chose the right moment to exploit it. And deserves a lot of credit for that, and I think he'll probably be in the playoffs. And I think his defense will play real well. He's a very good defensive coach.
Yeah. One other pick.
And then
go ahead.
Go ahead, Dennis. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say one of the guys that I texted with, Keith. He likes his very excited about a 6th-round pick of getting the KC receivers there. I would have preferred to get the Philly receivers there, but the KC receivers is not a bad unit either.
Well, remember this was an even numbered round, Dennis. You got to go from the top to bottom on my thing. So I took Philly 2nd in the round. He took Kansas City 5th. I had Kansas City kind of in the middle of the pack, but they have good yardage. Stephon Page is a tremendous guard at the flanker. And the other guys have yardage. I was going this new formula trying to go a little more yardage. I think Nathan would like this formula that I'm using right now for wide receivers that I'm trying out. And this set, especially with the sacks and stuff like that, it's like I wanted the big play yardage, and no white die 6 is a big reason why I'm not big on West Coast. No white die 6 and all the 3-4 defenses make you a little leery about trying a West Coast approach. But in Dan's case, he got an excellent defense, so I think it'll work well for him. But yeah, I thought that was a good pick to get there. Again, this is Michael's first time around. I didn't really like that Houston pick. I thought there was other wide receiver groups, but I think I had it wrong. I think I was thinking that Michael took them. I am doing this wrong. It is from the top down. This is in order, Dennis. So you're right. Philly went near the end of the round. Okay, so Washington OL started the round. I screwed it up. My bad. Did I 1, 2? Yeah, I did. Yeah, my bad. Washington OL started the round, so I should have gone down this way. So the Houston receiver group. You could have taken the Philly or Kansas City. Drew Hill's got a great card. I know he likes Butch Woolfolk's card. It's his first go around, but I didn't really have them as one of the strong receiver groups. And I thought this pick was going to hurt you because you had drafted Chicago returners at Willie Gault. You needed a flanker, and I kind of view this Houston group as almost like a flanker-only group, which would have been great to get for you, but you got Wes Chandler anyway with the San Diego group, so it worked out well through the next round. But let me do a little soft reset here, as they say, because we're almost done. Washington OL is interesting. The pass blocking is weak, but great run blocking, and none of the other lines are really that good anyway. So I was thinking to myself, so let me go for the really good run blocking on the left side. I'm not going to hold up against this pass rush anyway because I've got 4s instead of 2s. What do you think about Jason Owens taking Washington OL maybe earlier than some of the OLs that had a lot more overall points?
He's going to try to get people to call run behind those 6s. I still prefer to have at least a little bit more pass protection. I think I would have held off on that pick.
Maybe I did that. He drafts Ron Jaworski, so no will call pass. So he's got
to protect his runners.
He's got to run the ball. We'll watch that. I don't know. Then you had like Phil Simms goes in here. Look, 6th round. Phil Simms got a good deep card. Nothing wrong with that. Now you see like Lawrence took the Washington halfback. Ron got the Cleveland halfback, the very next pick, and Ernest Biner, despite what you may have heard, Dennis, I don't think fumbles. On that play when he fumbled the fumble crossing the goal line into the end zone, I think he hadn't fumbled in like 390 attempts before that, or some crazy number, or had fumbled very little. His number is 20.5. Okay, but he's a 5.5 blocker. I think he receives probably better than George Rogers, which wouldn't be hard to do. So I'm just saying, you have to take George Rogers. I'm killing Lawrence with this. I tend to do that. I find one thing I don't like, and I ride it forever. Sure, Riley to Jim Plunkett. I wasn't that thrilled with this pick, Dennis. I know he's high in the file, but Plunkett's card is like a flat pass only card. Like we looked at Danny White. I mean, Danny White can throw the ball down the field. He's got 8 to 10 complete on the bomb. The short pass right's not too bad for 3rd and long. But I mean, this Jim Plunkett card is, let's bring it up here on the screen.
But
this looks like Don Troll from the 1968 Oilers. There's nothing going on here. It's like Oliver Luck. 3.8 on the long pass. And
are you sharing? I think I don't see it on the screen. Can you share your screen?
Oh, I was sharing my screen.
I see. I only see the spreadsheet. I don't see the.
I'm trying to share. You don't see this?
League file. Unshare it and reshare it. See if that fixes it. I think your screen's locked.
This is the high production value. Hold on. I bet somebody said we see it because I bet what happened is you probably clicked on something. You probably locked in the wrong thing. They were seeing it, Dennis.
Oh, maybe so. Okay, never mind. Go ahead. Keep going.
You're slowing down the show. Come on. How is that for the podcast? I accuse you of slowing down the show when I go on for like 30 minutes about some backup linebacker forward during the draft show. That is definitely the pot calling the kettle black. All the Mike Hargrove jokes, Dennis. The way I go on in the show and the pace at which I play, I was like, I got to be careful with these Mike Hargrove jokes because if anyone's doing Randall, it's me. And that was only the first 2 rounds for you not drafting. So, but this Jim Plunkett guy, 3.8 on the long pass, and then he's got 6.14. 6.14 in the flat pass. But don't worry, Dennis. He has 5 units of must run. I'm sure that he can. Oh, no, it's not going to work out too well. 8 is +1. He gets a couple yards. This is a flat pass only card, pretty much. Don't you agree?
Yeah, that's not very good. What about the backup quarterbacks? Are the backup quarterbacks any good in the set? I remember there was a year where Mark Wilson was good against the short and Plunkett was good on the flats, or vice versa. Is that the case in this set?
Well, I looked at those guys, and Mark Wilson can throw short and long, but certainly not better than the other options that were available, such as Lynn Dickey, if you're going to go that route, who lasted until the 9th round. What other quarterbacks were around still on the board? Well, Jim McMahon, I think, was still around.
Yeah.
You got Jim McMahon the next round. So, and you would say, all right, he's going to go West Coast. He's going to run the ball control, but what did he have? Did he have it? I don't think anybody good to run with yet.
Right.
Yeah. He had, he had Randy McMillan. McMillan. So, McMillan and Plunkett. And he took Tony Dorsett the next round, and he got a good offensive line. So I guess maybe I should take that back. But that Plunkett card, like I told Michael, you might not see the free safety coming up too much unless it's a free safety blitz or double team to cover.
Hey, Tom.
Weakness.
Tom,
yes.
I'm gonna have to jump off now. I got to feed my kids dinner. So
all right.
Take it home the rest of the way.
Anyway, so.
If anybody else wants to jump in and be the co-host, feel free. We'll see you guys.
All right. And we're gonna wrap it up soon. And we'll probably do a league. Maybe not until Monday or Tuesday because it's Dennis is a family guy on Saturdays. Unless I stay up to 1 a.m. We're gonna end this show and then maybe start another one. We'll see. I have done that before. And you think I'm slow, and Dennis is here. You should hear me by myself, which you are now. So I suspect the ratings are going to drop. No, there's still people there. All right, so that'll be interesting to watch. I forgot he had Tony Dorsett and Randy McMillan in a good line, so I guess that's where he's going to go. And I think Sean Riley went defense heavy early, which the Rileys like to do. Raiders linebacker, Kansas City DB, Seattle DL, and Chicago L is good. So, yeah, you're going to have defense and running the ball, which is a formula for success. Boy, this Plunkett card just can't do anything down the field. I think you have to convert a 3rd and 9 occasionally. You're going to make somebody respect the bomb. But anyway, you can see why he didn't bother drafting his receivers until a little later. Oh, the Giants receivers. Jim Plunkett and the Giants. You might see 8 men in the box. We'll see. Although I would caution against giving him a shot at any free long gains. You can probably slow him down just by guessing run and shuffling your linebackers around or guessing pass to slow down that flat pass West Coast attack. And then go down, let's see. I tend to go through every pick when Dennis is gone, so I'm going to try not to do that. I love this pick here, number 8 of round 6. Dennis got Jim McMahon. No, I don't think Jim McMahon was the best quarterback in the set by any stretch of the imagination, but I thought he was the best like before. There was a significant drop-off. I had him at number 12, and my quarterback formulas are not that great. I don't even go by them. Certainly not 100%, but they help me out a little bit. I think they're too harsh in the turnovers. They hit Oliver Luck at number 11. If you look at Oliver Luck card, he cannot really throw short and long. Well, they get Mike Borowski with that set too, so the Houston set, it kind of works a little bit. But I said before, I like a quarterback who can challenge you at all 3 levels. Makes it harder for the defense. And McMahon, I think McMahon's card is pretty decent. So, I mean, it's the 6th round. You've built up the rest of your team pretty well. That Denver pick allows him to punt on the linebackers. He's got Kevin Mack to run the ball. So you got to respect the run there. And this McMahon card, he's got some must run 2 to 84 yards or more. That's not too bad. But I mean, the flat pass, the short pass, the long pass, it's not bad. He can do a little of everything. He's not great, but he can do a little of everything. The must runs will help you out short pass right. Although we all are terrified of the sacks, so short pass right. The must run's not going to help you out as much as when you have all those 7s or it's a modern set without as much pass rushing. But I feel like this is the type of quarterback card. The rest of the team is pretty good. It's 1985. Not everyone is low turnover. Even though this was behind Oliver Luck in my rankings, I would have rather had this card. Look, he still throws some picks and stuff like that, and you want to run the ball first and set up the pass, but get some good receivers. You can take shots down the field with this card. Run, bomb. As Rick Barnes will tell you, it works real well. So I think that was a nice pick. And I always say this, but we all know it to be true. We know what a great coach Dennis is. So you get at least a decent quarterback card, and the rest of the team might be pretty good. I don't think Dennis' team came out that great, but he's such a great coach, I wouldn't put anything past him. So that was a nice spot to get him. I've already gone through the bottom half of the round. This is interesting to me too, that Jim took the New England returners maybe over like the Philly wide receiver group or something like that. And then he ended up with the Tampa Bay returners. He ended up with the Tampa Bay receivers later. And the New England returners, I don't think are that great as returners. Or Steven Starring might be real good on the kicks. I don't remember. Let me see where they came out in my rankings. That's what I was telling Mick earlier. It's like, oh, if you didn't do it my way, you did it wrong, which is not true. But I do act that way sometimes, so that's my own fault. I got to watch out for that. But yeah, I didn't have the return group particularly high, just as returners. And you get Irving Fryer, but why wouldn't you just take the New England receivers? And you get Irving Fryer and Stanley Morgan. And Stanley Morgan's got a good card. He's not even in the league. I mean, I would rather have the New England receivers here and the Tampa Bay returners there than vice versa. The Tampa Bay split end good. I know they had a good number 2 receiver, but I don't think he's as good as Stanley Morgan. So Jim's pretty well prepared, so I'm not sure what he was thinking there. He can email us or post in the forum if he listens, and as we drone on endlessly. And the receiver run started around here somewhere. You see Houston receivers, you see the New England returner, which has a receiver, KC receiver, Jet receiver, Philly receiver, San Fran receiver. And this is not round 1 and 2. This is my thing freezing. That was round 6. And so 1, 2, 3, you had 5 receiver groups and a returner receiver in a 7-pick span there in the 6th round. We got the 7th round. Jason grabbed his halfback with Tony Nathan. Lawrence finally shows some defense with Buffalo. And this pick I thought was unusual. This Atlanta return pick as well. I don't think you're getting much out of those guys in the half-court offense, in the half-court set. From scrimmage, I think Stacey Bailey might not be too bad. I mean, they're okay, but it's not a real good receiver group. But I think the receiver groups were thinning out or getting decimated by selection elsewhere. But I think the Raiders, I know Jesse Hastro, I think, is only 16-22 short. They have a tremendous long passing group, a lot of big yardage. The Seattle group was pretty good. Those might have been the last 2 groups that were still whole that I would have rather had returners. And then the Buffalo receiver, well, I know that guy Butler is good. And Ron knows what he's doing. So I got to take a closer look at Stacey Bailey, who I think is the Atlanta flanker. Let's see, Dallas had, but Green Bay, well, you got to that point where we all knew going into this draft, my God, the offensive lines are terrible. I mean, Miami's the only one that can pass block, which we keep saying over and over again. I mean, the number 2 pass blocking set's got 4 5s and a 7. And his defense has got 11 12s running around and like 2 or 3 4 guys on several of these defenses. It's not like there's 1 or 2 with great pass rush. When you put these front 4s and these linebacking groups together, especially in some of these 3 4s, and I say especially these 3 4s, the best 4 3s, Chicago, Dallas, and Washington, each have really good pass rush on their own from 4 guys. And Chicago might even be the worst one. Washington's just real good. So, and then he puts 1 linebacker. He's probably at least an 8. So you can see where these 5s are going to wilt in a hurry. And that's the second best one. You don't have to go down too far before you're looking at 3s and 4s and 5s. Hello, nurse. So you got to run to set at the pass here or spend a lot of time with your quarterback on his back. I think we don't play injuries. And then, okay, so the point I'm going to get to is, considering that, you don't want to overdraft these lousy offensive lines. So the Green Bay won 17 pass points, 23 run points. At least they can run block a little bit. And you got to start making decisions like that. And I was thinking of that with Washington. I guess I would take Washington if I had to. And you got to try and coach around it. It's going to be interesting. There's no unrestricted free safety blitz. So there could be games with 8, 9, 10 sacks for one team. Easy. Back in the day, you get 13, 14 sacks occasionally. Just like a sack fest. And we didn't even free safety blitz much in my neighborhood. We thought it was a cheap move. So, we all played. And then Joe was the last one, I think, to get Minnesota. The Seattle group for Dave Gabbard, that's kind of nice in the 7th round because it's 7th round, they're explosive. Dennis complimented Willie Gault with Wes Chandler. Chandler got a tremendous flanker card. You couldn't ask for better, really. Michael's new. He's developing. He's letting how things go. This Raider tight end fullback group, I thought was interesting. Todd Christensen is really good. flat pass, short pass, possession guy. And Frank Hawkins is actually a good short yardage back who I think blocks pretty decently. So, you know, there were not a lot of good combos for tight end fullback, which is why if you took Dallas receiver, Green Bay receiver, that made sense. You got the good tight end that could focus only on the fullback. But that was part of it, I'm sure. Or if you took like Cleveland, like Dennis did, with a Green Bay tight end fullback group would have been one if they didn't get cannibalized by the Green Bay wide receiver selection. But there weren't a lot of really good tight end fullback groups. So, and it's late in the draft. You got to pick your, you got to live with something, live with something to be weak at. He still had some decent units like San Fran DL, blah, 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 blah. Then he went to the 8th round, which was going to be a 17-1 round. I had this all backwards, so forgive me. But Oakland receivers in the 8th round with all the long passing, I like that a lot. Lawrence Fly took a linebacker group. It's a decent one. I got to look at Stacey Bailey and Jerry Butler. I think it's Jerry Butler or Ray Butler. I forget. The wide up of Buffalo. So the draft was really thinning out here. It's hard to find anything here I'm in love with or that I hate because we're in the last 3 rounds. I mean, the kicker punters, a lot of that is beauty in the eye of the beholder. Do I want to bet a field goal from the 26? But then give up, 32 yards on a kick return or a long gain. So this is the special teams area. Late 8th round, late 8th round, the 9th round. Late 8th round, first half of the 9th round. Late 8th round, late 9th round guys were taking all the kickers and punters and stuff like that. I'm looking for a sneaky good pick in here somewhere. It's hard to find. Giants do secondary is like a 17. You can coach around them. I was looking at them. And that's about it. I mean, look, guys are taking the last units available. I will say, don't go to sleep on this Houston quarterback group. I know I probably am much harsher on the turnovers. And Oliver Luck is very low turnover, and he's Andrew Luck's father. He's very low. Not that I'm a huge Andrew Luck fan, but he's on a couple of my teams. The guys tend to think I am. So this is where my formula sucks and why I can't really use it straight up for quarterbacks because I've got Oliver Luck as the number 11 quarterback. I've got him ahead of like Jim McMahon, Phil Simms, even Danny White. Of course, I have the snap fumbles in here also. You can't really win. You don't want to ride that card. I mean, you'll use it if you have to, and that's what Jim is probably doing. Morosky actually has got some pretty decent downfield ability, often depending on the scenario. But there's no way Oliver Luck should be number 11 in the set, so I got to tweak my formulas. But I just kind of use them as a guide, and then I kind of look at the cards also. That was kind of it. I mean, I was happy with my draft, but not all that happy with my overall team. But kind of weird. I'm envious of Rick because I blew it by not taking Walter Payton. And that's like the draft recap. And we're going to definitely do a show that's going to be season review. I thought all you guys and so many guys listening did a really good job drafting in general. There's so much experience here. There's so many championships here. So many guys that play in these almost every year, whether it's Battle Royale or Autumn Wind or Ed's family of leagues, and we all play each other in these leagues, and we know who's real good and all. And this is a very strong group here. So whoever wins is going to have earned it. And that's not surprising that the drafting was good. And a lot of stuff is beauty in the eye of the beholder. And I know I come up with these fancy formulas and fancy rankings, and that doesn't mean that they're right, either the formulas or the rankings, that I act like I know everything, so I need to get away from that. But it's perhaps it's my nature to be a big know-it-all. But and I have not won a Battle Royale championship. I don't play in that many that Dennis keeps telling me. But still, I haven't won one. Bowl against Dennis when we did that in Summer Sprint, and he crushed me. I got sacked like 9 times that game. He was putting the hell out of me and running all over me. So we'll see what happens. I'm looking forward to playing because my 2 spring teams are future-oriented, and I'm sure everyone else is looking forward to playing. Just remember, you're going to be getting sacked. You might be throwing some picks, but you're going to sack the other guy and get some picks back, hopefully. So got to run this at the pass. Let's see what happens. This is going to be really interesting. And 17 teams out of 28. I don't think we've ever had this much saturation. 32 in the minor leagues, I believe. Not 17 out of 28. And in this set with this offensive line, it's going to be interesting. A lot of grinded out games. I think you'll see some 10-7s and 13-10s, and it's not going to be unusual. There'll be a lot of that. There'll be teams that just play like that all the time. I mean, I feel like get me to 17 points. I got a really good chance. Sorry, guys. I'll sign off now. Maybe Dennis and I will do something later. Maybe not. I'm sure he'll email or whatever. Take care. Hope you enjoyed it. And I hope I didn't offend anyone with some of my strong views. You know, guys told me they prefer I as opposed to being unvarnished. And I wish everyone good luck. And like I said, I know I don't have all the answers. All right, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.